Hello, 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 everyone. Hope you're all having a good time. Welcome to 2026. Feels weird to say, not gonna lie. Turn down the music a little bit. Yeah, I just feel a little bit weird to be in a new year, huh? Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to kick in a new year. I feel like 2025, like especially at the end, was really busy for us, so I'm excited for the new year. Let's go. Good to see you, Lily. Hello, baby. Partner Tiffany's in the chat as well. Hello, hello. From the living room. Right. It's good to be back. First stream of the year. Got some big plans for the stream this year. As people from the community have seen, we've all been sharing our 2026 goals actually, which was really, really interesting. Some pretty interesting goals there for a lot of people. I also have a couple of my own. Let me actually go back. What did I write down? Are they even still relevant? I know, it's only a couple of days ago, but it was like on a whim. Then I started adding things there. So, my goals are to spend more time on creative tasks in my personal time. That is actually something that I wanted to do for a while because so much of my time has been consumed with like either work or Beyond Extend, right? So that I don't really have like time to dive into new techniques in Unreal or something like that. But since we moved to well, I didn't even explain this yet. Like, since we moved to Belgium, I guess I'm now like a freelancer running Beyond Extend as like the business. And I was up to contract work, which I also started my first contract this week. So, but that's only 4 days a week. So I have a bit more time that I used to have, which is good, and I'm hoping to fill that up with some other stuff. Which kind of leans into like stream more things. That's like my last little thing that I wanted to do for this year. There's a part of me that really misses like doing full streams where I go in and I make stuff in Unreal and all that kind of stuff. It's just there was not really that much time to do it, and then if I only do it like once a week, then it kind of feels like it's very slow going progress, you know? So I don't know. Like, it's something that I'm still wanting to play with, and I definitely want to stream more things. One thing that I already want to announce in just like a little bit that I've kind of been teasing over the past couple of weeks is finally done. So I will make an announcement in just a little bit. But what else is there? Oh yeah, I want to start building like small prototypes, get into blueprints, and start like testing systems for my own game. I don't know if the whole game is going to be done in the year, right? But I definitely want to get into the routine where I can start testing things to then potentially build components for a game or something like that. I think it could be really, really interesting. Yeah, and then also I want to explore more options for hosting events near where I live. I think that could also be really cool. For the people in the chat, like, let me know your 2026 goals, or I guess goals. Let's call them goals. Beyond Extend the game. Yeah, if I'm gonna make a game, it's not gonna be about Beyond Extend. Sorry to disappoint. I think we have a lot of stuff already going on, you know. What would that even be? What would that even be? Oh, what we could do, I think this could be fun. Like, what we could do, if there's ever an opportunity to add like characters in a game or name places or something like that, we can kind of have people from the community be those NPCs and like get names in the game and all that kind of stuff. I think that could be cute. That could be pretty interesting. But we'll see. We'll see. We're not gonna get there yet. You know, we're gonna take it small. We're gonna build it up. Oh, Leia saying participating in the Beyond Extend challenge. Yes, let's go. We have our Beyond Extend challenge coming up in March, I think, around that time. Anyway, so yeah, it's getting. I mean, we just started the year, and it feels like it's really close already. But that's just because time is going really fast. So Yeah, the new challenge is gonna be really, really quickly approaching. Which is cool. Um, yeah, hey David Draws, how are you? Hopefully you have a good New Year's and welcome Slate. Good to see you as well. Hope you had a good New Year's too. Happy holidays. What else has been happening? So I've been doing a lot of work on the website in preparation for the course. So I guess it's two announcements in one, right? Okay, we'll start with the first announcement. So internally we have talked about like the actual deadline, and then we're gonna do the actual release of the course, right? So we have around like 25 lessons currently for the course that are in various stages of progression. We still have 4 that are at the beginning stages, but hopefully we are hoping to get them all done by the end of next month. So at the end of February, that's when we're currently thinking to release our course. And then it will be, let's call it like early access or alpha, whatever you want to call it. Well, I keep calling it a course, but it's not actually a course. It's like an online academy because we have 25 like full lessons on there. And when I'm talking lessons, like some of them go like a couple of examples are, for example, the one that I wrote about like color theory, right? That's like a whole lesson with examples and exercises and all that kind of stuff. So when I say course, I mean it's going to be like a comprehensive thing that we're going to keep building up on. But yeah, so the initial release or the early access period for that would be at the end of next month. That is our deadline, and I wanted to share that with you all, because everyone in the community has been helping us and funding us and like helping us like build these lessons by yeah, your support, right? And that means a lot to us, because otherwise like we couldn't have paid for like all the people to come on and taking their time out of their schedule and all that kind of stuff to build these lessons, which is really cool. So yeah, that's the first thing. I am pretty comfortable with the website now because that has been the majority of my part. So now I'm actually switching over to helping with the content as well, because I've written a whole bunch of lessons, but I need to make a lot of video content still. So I need to do a bunch of scripting, record a bunch of videos, and then edit them and upload them and all that good stuff. So that will be sort of my focus point going forward, to hopefully clean up a lot of the lessons that I've been working on. Hello, Victoria. Happy New Year. Sounds exciting. Yeah, I'm excited too. It feels like such a long time that we've been working on this, and yeah, it is really ambitious, right? We put a lot of love and time and passion into it, so I'm really curious where this is gonna go. And hopefully it will be like really useful for people as well. But yeah, we'll say more about that like in the future, as we get closer and closer to the deadline of the end of next month. But we're getting pretty close. And then the second thing that I actually wanted to announce is a new event that I'll be running. And currently the time that I'm thinking about running this event is going to be every Friday potentially. And of course, that event, as you all know, is going to be the portfolio reviews. So we've built a website. I'm really happy with the way that it's looking now. Let me actually switch over to the screen if it's the right one. It is the wrong one. Let me quickly switch this over. There we go. So we are on our dashboard now. So this is your dashboard. You can just do this by logging in to the website. And as you'll see, if we scroll down under your perks, there's a new perk called portfolio reviews. So this has literally just unlocked like a little bit before I started streaming. And in here, you can fill in your name. You can give us a bunch of details. And then you can submit your portfolio for portfolio reviews. And then we'll just go through the list of portfolios to review. And that will currently, I don't know what the cadence of that is going to be. I'm thinking that we are going to start out with like a weekly cadence of, I don't know, portfolio reviews every week, and then we'll see how that goes. There's also some information here because we have built sort of like a grading system that you can kind of see. I've given myself as an example here. Um, I'm thinking that currently we have 4 categories. So the artist, that is like you and who you are as a person and how you present yourself and where you live and your CV and all that kind of stuff. Then the presentation, that it should speak for itself. So that's the presentation of your portfolio, how well designed it is, how consistent, and all that kind of stuff. And the art itself, that is more like if you understand like the right workflows and when to use them, if you are really good at environmental storytelling, for example, or if you have an eye for like color theory, or something like that, right? And then the techniques is where we go into the actual breakdowns, right? So how is your topology looking? How's your breakdowns looking? Again, the workflows that you use and all that kind of stuff. Will you review a portfolio that you've seen many times, like my future project, for example? So there will be a cadence where I'm not going to review a portfolio like every month, right? But that is not going to be possible anyway, because I'm assuming that in each session we're only going to do X amount of people, and then you'll have to wait until like the next week or potentially the next month or whatever, right? So there's going to be a staggering period there anyway. I will also say that I will not review your portfolio again within 6 months. That is something that I feel that if you, I don't know, if you've done a lot of changes to 6 months, maybe we can have a look potentially. Maybe you become like the exception to the rule. But yeah, to add like a couple of portfolio pieces within 6 months while you're doing other stuff on the side too, that's really tricky. So that's sort of like the limit that I'll say for myself. And then also, I want to add this. Currently, there's nothing here, but what my goal is that I want to build a leaderboard from all the portfolios, but I don't want to do this to like breed some sort of like ferocious competition between all of you, right? But I kind of want to use this as an example of, let's say one person is really good at their portfolio presentation, that other people can then look them up and see like, ooh, how did they do things? And how can I incorporate some of those elements within my own portfolio, right? So it becomes like a resource database for looking up like other people from the community that did really well in certain categories so that you can get inspired by them. Route 1, hello. Is this live or coming soon? This is live. This just released before the live stream. So you can go to your dashboard and actually sign up to portfolio reviews right now if you wanted to. Hello, Ofek. Good to see ya. I'm curious, a portfolio for texture artist should include one prop, so should there be materials only? I know the stream is more towards environments, but any advice would be helpful. I mean, that's a good question, right? Like, when you are a material artist, I think it's most of them that you see, they only have materials. However, the way that I always think about it is your materials need to showcase how they can be applied in a game art format, right? So if you just have material spheres, you're limiting yourself, because I want to see how you apply your materials in context, right? Route 1, whereabouts? I can't see it. I think that might be because we just did a migration, so you might have to update your payment settings. I think that's some of the issues that we're having currently on the back end, where a lot of people need to basically update their payment information again. Unfortunately. Yeah, that's also good to mention for people that have like issues accessing certain things. But it should be right there. It should be on just on your main page, really. Let me double check. I mean, have other people submitted already? Not yet. Let me double check if I made sure to publish everything. Victoria saying, there's also a texture environment artist. Yeah, like some companies do it differently, right? I know that like Naughty Dog has a very specific way of working, for example. So with everything on your portfolio, if you want to work for a specific company, it is better to almost cater toward that company if that is your single goal, right? Especially in the beginning. If people are just stopping by in the stream, feel free to ask any questions. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have, and we can chat about them. Let me quickly double check here. No, that should be... Yeah, it should all be available. Yeah. Found it. Nice. Good stuff, good stuff. Cool. And this is one of those things where over time, as I refine the way that we're looking at portfolios, right? I'm gonna make improvements to the whole system that we use as well, and then hopefully we can build some additional tips and tricks and all those kind of like helpful resources to kind of help you with building your portfolio going forward. That would be the goal of this page, that we use it as a continuous resource that we're going to keep building up for the future. So yeah, I am going to make like a proper post about this in our community chat as well, and I'll send out a bunch of emails for it too. But yeah, I just wanted to give a heads up for all you lovely people that are here now live so that you can cut straight to the front of the line and get your portfolio reviewed first if you wanted to. Cool. Yeah, what else is happening? So let me go to the overview. We got two workshops that are coming up. So we got Tomer and Jersey, two amazing people that are going to be joining us for workshops. So we got Tomer coming on Sunday, and then at the end of the month we have Jersey. Really happy to have them both on. I'm super excited to see their talks. So if you've not seen that, feel free to have a look. Let's see. Slate is saying, do you think it's better to keep a certain style to hunt for a company of that specific category, or do different projects with a different setting to increase your chance of getting hired? I have always been a favor of, honestly, neither doing both. I want to see what you bring to the table, because if you have your own artistic insights and your own artistic contributions, right? That is what we look for in the creative field. If you can just replicate someone else's work or work within a specific style, I don't know, that has its benefits, right? But I want to see who you are as an artist and how you express yourself, right? Because honestly, anything, if we switch back to the main view, anything else is sort of secondary, right? At least to me. Like, as an artist, you are responsible for visualizing what you have in your head, right? Like, expressing yourself visually is what you do as an artist. And whatever we do beside that, I know that we have to fit into like a production role, right? So that we have to work for, like, let's say, this company is going to work in this way. So that means that you have to know the workflows that they use, but not necessarily cater your art style or something like that to it, my opinion. Obviously, does that mean that in a sort of like realistic scenario, if you are running head to head with a person that is doing that for that specific company, you might lose out, for sure. But in the opposite world, let's say that company doesn't exist anymore, that person has wasted a bunch of time trying to make work for a company that doesn't exist anymore, right? So that would be my personal advice, and yeah, my personal way of thinking about like how to build your portfolio, right? Especially now with the instability in this industry, right? I think it is probably best to not cater towards like one specific studio, but have like a little bit of like broader mindset. That's also where when I'm gonna be doing portfolio reviews, right? Um, I do ask the question, right? So you see me ask the question in our portfolio reviews, right? So when you submit your name and all that kind of stuff. And there's a question saying like, "Oh, what's your favorite studio um or game?" Right? And that is more for me to give an indication of which like broad or general direction you want to go in, rather than, oh, you want to work for that specific style. But the I can't really ask a question of like, oh, what are your broad intentions when it comes to your art style? Because that's a very vague question, right? So for me to make it easier for all of us to understand and have like a common like target, it's easier to ask, hey, can you name like your first like the project that you want to work on, because that immediately gives me something to latch onto, same as yours, right? So make any project that showcases your strength as an artist. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's what it's all about, right? I and this might showcase my survivorship bias a little bit, right? But the way that I've always thought about my portfolio is that I am undetermined, like I'm unshaken in my goal to build worlds, right? I don't care about assets. I just want to get better at like making worlds more effectively, right? So that means that I'm constantly pushing myself in terms of workflows, like how can I be more effective in the workflow that I use, right? So if you've ever seen some of my streams, the medieval project is an exercise in me trying to figure out like what is the current day most effective way of building a big world when you don't have a lot of people that can work on it, right? That means that you have to be really clever with how you use resources, right? And that has always been my focus, and I've never really steered away from that, because I don't care about making a single asset. Never have and probably never will. Like if you ask me to do like very detailed work and spend like 2 weeks on an asset, that's not going to engage me. I would rather build a world rather than a single prop. Um, and I think if I have to do some self reflection, that made me stand out in a crowd of people that were just trying to please the market, right? Where I wasn't really trying to do that. I was trying to carve my own way and being very visually vocal about it, if that makes sense. Now, is that the best approach? Maybe not, right? Maybe that's too risky. Um, but yeah, I think you can never really go wrong with the fundamentals and then exercise them in a way that plays into your strengths. Um, yeah, hope that makes sense. Like, feel free to ask any follow-up questions. Um, Hello, Henrik. Good to see you. Happy New Year. Hope you're doing well. Mm-mm. Exactly what I was thinking. Thanks for confirming. Much appreciated. Yeah, no worries. I mean, it's a difficult. Here's the thing. When we open the topic, we open Pandora's box of like, okay, how do I apply for a job? Like, what do I need to have in my portfolio? All that kind of stuff, right? One broad thing of advice that I would give is look at what the majority of the market is doing and see how you can not do that, but do something different in your own way, right? Because what is going to inevitably happen is if everyone's doing it in a certain way, if you just do it in the same way, then you're just going to end up on the same pile, right? You don't want to be part of that pile. You need to stand out somehow. And this, I'm keeping it very vague and very broad by intention, but this can have many ways of showing itself, right? So for example, if you like assets, if you like props, right? But you specifically like making old like 80s tech or something like that, right? Just dive into that, right? Like make that your niche. And because even if you do like old 80s tech, sure, you might be skipping, I don't know, having to work on, I don't know, let's say the newest like Call of Duty that's like more futuristic. But if that never was your intention to work on anyway, you're not really missing out, you know? Yeah. And the same thing can happen in LinkedIn as well, right? So for example, a lot of people that are applying to jobs now, what they'll do is they'll go on LinkedIn, they'll look for jobs and then apply that way, right? Everyone else is doing that as well. So you have to kind of think outside the box, you know? And I kind of look for like an attack plan in that case, right? So if we look at LinkedIn, then you can still do that, right? But don't only do that. So because that's the easiest thing, I would start there until it's exhausted. Then I would start having a look at individual openings on individual websites that don't get aggregated, right? So go to a website from like all your local game studios, the one that have websites and all that kind of stuff. Maybe they don't post on LinkedIn, right? And see if you can find opportunities there. That would be step 2. Step 3 would be to reach out to individual people or individual recruiters, you know, and then step 4 would be to reach out to like friends and I don't know, whoever you can, right? But there's like an attack plan there and like a structure to the whole thing. And that's how I kind of approach, where I tend to think about a lot of things, right? Like look at the landscape first, see what everyone else is doing, and see how you can either stand out or do something different. Because otherwise, in this competitive field, it's really hard to stand out. Oh yeah, Happy New Year! Yeah. Yeah, Happy New Year to you too, Henrik. Yeah, some great questions. This is actually okay. It's a little bit of a side tangent. This is actually something that I want to do. I'm playing around with the idea of, you know what I just said, like on Friday, I want to do portfolio reviews. I kind of want to do a slot after or before where I do like a Q&A as well. Because a lot of people have these questions and sometimes I'll have to cut those questions off because we want to do like Whip Wednesday or something like that, right? But I actually want to have just like a full block of time that I can dedicate to like questions. And then also ask the community about them too. So that is actually something that I've been thinking about too, of like introducing on the Friday as well. So that I'm currently calling it like office hours, right? So it would basically be me streaming for like X amount of hours and then splitting it up into different sections or categories. So yeah, if that sounds good, let me know in the chat. Leia saying, oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, I think so too. And it's because I used to do that like ages ago. I called it like AMA Sunday or something like that. And it was really fun. It was really fun. And I miss those opportunities because there's, again, it's like a side tangent. In my goals, you know, I realized that I'm doing a lot of stuff, but it's not visible. And I want to change that. So, yeah. Route 1 is saying, sometimes for me, it's a confidence. So I'm like, oh, I'm not the best at this. So I start working on shortcuts like texturing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, shortcuts are okay for the things that you don't really want to do, right? I'll give an example. So let's say, oh, you know that you need like a bit of foliage, but you don't want to become a foliage artist. So then you can kind of focus on shortcuts because you're not focused on how do I actually get technically sufficient in like all the steps, right? But if you are taking shortcuts on something that you do want to do, I don't know, sometimes it is interesting because I'm thinking about like my artistic development. And I feel that when I was taking shortcuts, there was sometimes also a sign of, hey, maybe this is not what you want to do. So that might also be the case, right? So that is something that you have to kind of figure out. If you're trying to take shortcuts on the same thing always, maybe that's an indication that you don't really want to do it, or that you're not technically sufficient in it just yet, and that you need like more training, right? Like it's a weird one, but it is very tricky like that. You'll kind of have to figure that out. Slate is saying one thing people say is make a portfolio that instantly shows your role. But as an environment artist, I enjoy making materials. Is it okay to have projects specific to materials or stick to full environments? Well, in that case, if you really enjoy making materials, right, then maybe it would be worth like looking into a material artist role, right? If that is a thing that you really, really, really enjoy. But like it doesn't hurt to have both, right? Like what you could do is say, because you brought this up, right? Like, so one thing people say is make a portfolio that instantly shows your role, but that can also mean let's say we have 10 portfolio pieces, right? If let's say 8 of them are materials and 2 of them are like full environments, then that is also showing that you want to be a material artist, but you also have the skills required for full environments, right? And I think that's what they mean. It's not necessarily meaning like it needs to be black and white, but I instantly want to see that like, hey, this is your priority and you have all these additional skills, right? Think about what I say constantly, right? Like think about yourself as a T-shaped personality in terms of skills, right? So what that means is that you have one skill that is like this good, and then you have a bunch of additional skills that are like sort of to the side, right? Making like an inverted T. Right? Think about your skill set. That is really what people want to see. That you have the ability to, let's say in your case, do materials to like the best possible level, but then you also have skills in assets and environments and all that kind of stuff, right? Because let's say if we take away the T and we turn you into like an I-shaped personality, right? That you only have the material skill, that is making you so vulnerable and somewhat unhireable for a company, because a company demands a certain type of flexibility, right? So if you can only do materials, that is a risk for the company. If you only do level art, right? You can only do set dressing, but you can't make assets. That's a vulnerability, right? And that's why companies usually don't hire for those positions, because it is too fragile. For me, like really in general, the main thing, and then video editing and After Effects. Yeah, but that's a difficult one, right? Because those two last things, video editing and After Effects, they don't matter to the game art stuff. Whereas I totally see where you're coming from, right? Because that's also somewhat my skill set. I think that's valuable. This is a weird thing. I think it's valuable in your career on the long term, but I think it's not necessarily that valuable if you want to start your career in game art, if that makes sense, right? Because if you want to get started in game art, spending a lot of time on video editing is not relevant to the skills that you have to get into game art, right? But I still think that there's like a lot of value to you as a person growing your own skills over a long period of time in your career, right? Because that's how Beyond Extend is built, right? I built the website. I edit most of the videos. Like when, I mean, you don't have a choice, right? When you want to run something by yourself, but yeah. And it's somewhat difficult, right? Like it's somewhat different in like different branches and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, don't work in the game branch. Yeah, exactly. But like every sort of niche is gonna have their own little proclivities, right? Josh is saying, is it fair to say it's less about being amazing at one skill, but more about being really good at many skills that make up environment art? No, I think it's still a balance of both. You have to be amazing at one skill so that I can immediately identify what you're really good at. And then you have a bunch of supporting skills that you're also decent at, right? So if we're making it somewhat black and white, right? Like if you break down your statement, yeah, so if you say like being really good at many skills that make up environment art, that is somewhat generalistic, right? So let's because then you're not a T-shaped personality because nothing stands out, right? So you're more of a generalist that is equally good. If we take the ideal case, that's equally good at everything. That means that you don't stand out in anything, right? Which makes you really difficult to hire. Because if you don't have the skills to bring a certain element of your skill set to the maximum level, then a company is also not going to hire you, right? Because they know that you can't hit like the amount of detail that you need to hit on certain developments. I mean, obviously, take that with a grain of salt because I'm speaking for the majority of my own experiences with AAA, right? So it's going to be slightly different in indie or smaller companies, but it's still valuable to have. It's being recognizable, right? Because what this, I'll give an example. So what this usually comes down to is that let's say I have a bunch of CVs or like a bunch of portfolios on my desk, right? And I need to look through all of them. If in that pile you don't stand out immediately, you're screwed, right? Because they're not going to be remembering you. So that is where the T-shaped personality comes in, where you can be like, hey, this guy is the fucking best at like assets. Yeah, sure, like some of the other stuff can use some work, but if we need an asset artist, this is the guy, right? It's also for a company team to really helpful when you understand more of the pipeline. It makes working in a pipeline way more efficient. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's why my earlier example was like for games again, right? Like if you are just a level artist, if you just do set dressing, like that is going to be annoying because you're now a bottleneck, right? Because let's say you're working on a map by yourself and you need to have like an asset made, but you can't do anything in a modeling package, then you kind of are useless at that point, right? So yeah. It's good to have additional things as well. That's why I think also game art is pretty tricky to get into, right? Especially environment art, because the base requirements are pretty broad, right? Like you need to be able to make a texture, you need to be able to make a material, you need to be able to make an asset, you need to do some set dressing, some storytelling, you need to be pretty good at like art fundamentals. Like you need to have like all these skills somewhat in a decent package before you can then like throw your hat in the ring and become a part of this get a job that way, right? Josh is saying gotcha. Okay, now it hits what you mean by like a reverse T. One could be an amazing modeler but then decent at all the others and create a standout but then decent at all the other skills, and then this creates a standout plus marketability in the job market. Yeah. That's my example with the stack of like portfolios, right? Like if you're just flicking through portfolios the entire day, if you don't stand out, that's your chance gone, right? So yeah. Yes, you have to put in a lot of work when it comes to games before you can be considered to get in. It is not easy. All right, I have a question for all of you. Let's turn the tables. When I was talking about doing Q&A events, right, or when I was talking to bring back like an event like this where you can ask me questions live, which is really cool. I really do enjoy this. What is a topic that you think I should be talking about? Like if we pick a category of something. I'd be curious to hear what you all think. And then in the meantime, hello, Sheila. Happy New Year. Your work is coming along really, really nice. I've been following it quietly. Maybe your rubric you were describing will follow the reverse T mindset. Yeah, it's that's sort of what we're trying to do, right? But like I think the reverse T mindset kind of comes from you, right? Because it It definitely depends on what you like, right? And if you, in my opinion, if that is one of your main jobs as a mentor, for example, to find out what the other person that you're talking to in your one-on-ones like likes, so that you can focus on those things and build the right skill set around like what they like to do, right? Um, but that means that that person on the other side needs to have thought about this question before and needs to have a certain element of like introspection to think about, ooh, I like this above this, you know? Because sometimes like people haven't even thought about that consciously, right? Because they're so caught up in the technical aspects of things that, yeah, which is understandable. But yeah, if everyone has any ideas on topics or discussions for future Q&A events, that would be cool. Because I have a list of ideas that I have lying around from like previous events. It would be pretty cool that we can definitely already use. When's the next Steam challenge? You already know. It's in March. That's that we literally announced that at the end of the last Steam challenge. But yeah, joke. Let's see. So like how the industry is going and where is just contract based and less full time. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. That's a good topic. Leia is saying different point of views. So what do different roles in games industry want? Like art lead, hiring manager. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see. That is an interesting one because I honestly have no clue. I have like a broad understanding, right? Like a very surface level understanding. Let's say I know if you have an interview with the narrative director tomorrow, I kind of know what they're looking for, right? But I'm technically not the person to like do a deep dive in that. But that's something that we can figure out, you know? Maybe I can talk to some friends, see what they're looking for. Maybe a Q&A about networking and how to get the most out of events like Gamescom. That's a good one. I feel like that's a topic that I need to learn a lot about myself. I think that could be cool. Yeah, because I gotta be honest, like I feel like I'm not that great at it, you know? I feel like I'm also still like figuring that stuff out myself. So that would be a cool one. Do a little bit of research. That'd be cool. Slate is saying a Q&A on like what it takes to become a lead, a senior, or a principal. Okay, that's cool. We definitely talk about that one. That's already, yeah. There's some interesting things there that I can think of. But that's an interesting topic. Yeah, I like that. It's gonna be, yeah. There's gonna be a couple of spicy topic points there because I do have some thoughts on things. It would be interesting to break the bubble as most people are in the artistic environment art field. But getting a broader perspective would help gaining a better overview and then becoming a more T-shaped person. Oh, I see. Yeah, specifically in relation to T-shaped personalities. Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I feel like my initial thoughts on that, you know, it's like a T-shirt personality needs to be specific to your profession that you want to be in, right? Because otherwise you're just like spending a bunch of time to learn things that are not relevant to you getting in, right? However, I think once you are in, then you can broaden your T, right? If we're going with the whole metaphor. Because then it becomes more relevant to be like, okay, you've got like a basis of environment art and you're spending almost 8 hours a day to like update and refine that, right? So that's kind of like maintaining itself now. And then you can kind of broaden out. But that's an interesting topic. Found an upside down T. Let's go. We'll use that for the presentation, you know? Henrik is saying a topic about finding and setting goals for yourself. What do I want to do, and so on. Oh, that's a good one. I think that's one of those things that I really struggle with when I want to help other people with it. Because I'm currently picking up mentorships as well, right? So we have some really interesting conversations with some of my mentees now, where there are certain things that I took for granted that other people just don't have. Right? So for example, I'll give a simple example. We were talking about like how do you visualize things, right? For me, that is interesting, right? So we can talk about an image or an idea, and I can immediately have like a vivid imagination of, hey, that is what I see in my mind. This is what the colors look like. This is what the smell could be. And this is the way that I feel when I'm in this environment, right? So that's the way that I visualize things. I have like a very, I guess, a vivid imagination. But there's also people on the opposite spectrum where if you tell them like, oh, imagine a red apple, and they close their eyes and they don't see that, right? There's a specific term for this. I don't know what it's called. But that is interesting to then, okay, how do you deal with that as an artist? Right? And then I spend a little bit of time thinking about it and like trying to build a framework together with them to then help them become better at visualizing things without having the visualization in your head, which is a really interesting thing. So that could be like a topic by itself almost. I always imagine knowing the work and interests of other teammates will make you able to better empathize the importance of certain tasks and how to support your team. Makes you everyone's best friend. Oh, is that phenomenon that we just talked about? Aphantasia? Is that it? I don't know how to pronounce that. Yeah, but that's like a really interesting phenomenon where like there's a gradient, there's like a spectrum of people that like some people can not imagine the apple at all. Some people can have like a vague resemblance of an apple, but they don't have a clear image. And then some people have like a really direct image where they can really see it and they can, yeah, have like a very vivid imagination, which is interesting. But yeah, the inability to form voluntary mental images. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Because here's the thing, right? Like as I always say, like the artistic journey is as much as about the art as it is about you, right? So when we get to those topics where it's where you are intertwined with like your personality, then yeah, those topics, like most of the time I don't really have like a good answer for it yet. I need to go and like research things, right? So for example, there was another topic that I still need to do some research on, and it's like if you have I don't even know what we would call it, but like intense ADHD, right? Where you get distracted really quickly. How do you then build a routine around that, or I don't know, some sort of structure around it where you can actually do focus on like certain tasks or something like that, right? But that's specific to like a certain person with a certain certain case of ADHD, right? Everyone can train it, or I have no clue, Henrik. We literally were just talking about it like a couple of days ago, and that's where it kind of piqued my interest, and I was like, okay. So what we discussed in that meeting was that that's where we need to compensate by having better references, right? And even do like a concept art, like where you can kit bash stuff yourself to kind of help you visualize things, right? Because even if you can't really, in this case, this person couldn't really visualize things, but they did have ideas, right? So it was more about like pulling all those ideas together and making one consistent idea with it that can then support you being able to visualize it, right? Like maybe you can't like visualize it mentally, but at least you can go back to your reference board and look at it visually, right? So that was my way of like forming a substitute for that. Is that the most effective way of going about it? Potentially, I don't know, but it is a way. But yeah, I don't know if you can train it. I don't know if that can change. because I haven't really looked into it just yet. But that's an interesting case, right? Like something that I haven't really encountered yet. But yeah, Leia, I think that's a good point. There's a lot of things that I learned from my team, but a lot of that I learned from when I was already in the industry, because I feel a lot of those things are so context sensitive, right? So for example, if you go to a certain company and they work on like a AA like linear game, the context of the way that you're going to pick up skills from other people is going to be relevant to a linear game, right? So if you then talk to, let's say, a level designer, they are going to teach you a bunch of skills that are going to be relevant to linear design. But if your next job is going to be open world games, then that changes, right? Sure, there's some like fundamental things, like there's art fundamentals, right? There's design principles that you can take away from that. But it is interesting how that like context just shifts. Anyway, I think that would be really cool to dive into, actually. Yeah. Got some thoughts, as you can tell. Why train it if Elon Musk is already working on brain microchips? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Inject me with that technology, baby. I can't wait. Ugh. God. That's a scary future. No thanks. Human chat GPT. Yeah, oh my god. We're gonna see so many weird things in our lifetime. It's gonna be crazy. Yeah. Oh, actually, there was one thing that I wanted to have a look at with you as well. This is something that this is something that I don't know. I just wanted to have a look at. Let's see. Route 1, in the meantime, is saying maybe a question on how to adapt with AI within the industry and how studios use it. That could be a good one. Yeah. A very divisive one. I don't... Here's the thing. With that question, I honestly would love to talk about it, and I probably will, but I don't think people are ready for it yet. I think that's the issue. I don't think people are ready to have an open, honest conversation about pros and cons and how we can actually use it as a tool. And yeah. Yeah, see? This is the thing, like we've only mentioned it, and that's usually the thing, right? Like people have very strong opinions on this. Where it's like Gen AI should never be used for art. Thieves don't belong in the creative space. And there is like fundamentally, like I do agree with that, right? But what if you then have like those edge cases where, for example, Ubisoft is already doing this, where they only train an LLM on their internal copyrighted work, right? So that they only train it on that. Yeah, I know, Leia. We're not gonna go there. I don't know. I just want to bring it up. Okay, we're not gonna go there. But then, see, but that's what I mean, right? Because I think that could be a very interesting topic, and maybe what would be cool is if we do. Maybe this would be nice, right? Like if we do a full-on Q&A, then maybe that's a thing that we can then point people to and say like, hey, look, we've already talked about this. Go and check this out, right? Maybe that could be cool. How can I network with other artists? Is LinkedIn good for it, or should I try something different? And what is your network method? I mean, Discord is a good idea. Like, there's so many good Discords where you can get like immediate communication and like you can sit in voice chat and all that kind of stuff with like fellow artists, which is really interesting. I think LinkedIn is okay, but I honestly don't think that people use it to communicate, right? I don't think they use it to, because to me, LinkedIn is almost like it's almost like a Pokedex, right? You're just collecting people. Whereas you have like a core group of people that you interact with, and then you have like your wider audience that like follows you or that follows you, or you follow them, right? So it's like, I don't know, I don't find it the most effective way of actually building a genuine network, where I feel that like communities, like Discord communities, for me, are probably the best way of doing it. And maybe even a close second is something like this, right? Where you have a live stream and you can interact with other people from that live stream. Something like that could be interesting. But yeah, my thing would just be to go and look out for Discord communities where you can then embed yourself into and be active, right? Here's the thing with networking. You get stuff out of it if you genuinely engage, because don't see it as a tool where you can just share your work and hopefully people will click on it, because that doesn't work. Like, you need to actually genuinely engage with people and then go from there. Route 1 is saying team challenges as well. Yeah, we do host the team challenges. One is coming up in one in March, so that's going to be good. I think that is a good way to build a small but consistent network, I feel, where you get to engage with like four other people and build something together, and that builds like really strong bonds, right? Some more AI comments as well. I think we're gonna skip that because yeah. My concern is that I will spend the next couple of years practicing my 3D skills and tools, and when I'll get into the studio, people just promoting stuff. Into a studio, people just promoting stuff because it's way faster. Are you talking about prompting? Yeah. I thought so. Yeah. I mean, it's think about it like this, right? If you have that mentality, if you don't know what art is, and then you do a bunch of prompts, then you don't know what you're doing, right? So the expected result is also going to be shit. And then we're talking about like an accepted future where this is going to happen, right? But there's still a lot of issues that are going to be solved. But we'll keep that for the AI talk. I don't want to go into it. Leia saying join the voice chats and the stream, so important. Yeah, I think in terms of priority, if your goal is to engage with other people, right? Like, join voice chats, like join communities that have like vibrant voice chats, and like whenever you see someone sitting in there, go say hi, you know? I think that's good. I think that's a great way. Hello, Justine. Or should I say Rubber Ducky Girl? I think, yeah. Yeah, hope you're having a good start of the week. A good start of the week, good start of the year. That's what I want to say. Angron, hello. Hope you're doing well. Happy New Year to you too. Yeah, I hope that helped at least a little bit, Satish. Oh, we forgot about like in-person connections, right? I feel that you build the best bonds in real life. I don't think there's any substitute. I know that we have like the whole working from home thing going on and all that, right? But like the best bonds you build by like actually being in person with the person there and talking to them directly. So if that is an option, that is good. But honestly, like some countries just don't have that option, right? So it is something that is potentially limiting for some people. Am I in this whip? By the way, well, if you tagged it, yeah, you should be talking about whip. Oh no, wait. There's maybe should we do this next time? We'll maybe do this next time. I was thinking about like reading an article that talks about like a former Assassin's Creed director explaining how to fix AAA development. Maybe we'll do that next time. because we still need to do like a bunch of feedback as well. So keep that in the backlog. Let's have a look. We will switch it over to Whip Wednesday now. Let's get into some feedback. You know the drill. If you want to get seen first, raise your hands in the chat, and then we can go to your work first. Swan, Leia, Lily, then Devious Phoenix, and then round 1. Hell yeah. I'm surprised that you're not first, Leia. Come on. You usually have your hand ready to go. It is pretty funny. I sent too early. I was hoping to go second. Oh my god. You got that thing on the trigger. You are on your screen? Oh no. How dare you? Oh my god, the latency. Okay, let's have a look. I actually have my hand ready, but I always wait for someone else. Oh my god. That's so genius. Don't want to be first, huh? Okay, let's have a look. So, straight into the fire. Let's have a look at your work, Swan. I'm a bit lax with the preparation, but nah, I don't want to look desperate. No, it's fine. It's fun, you know. Don't think about it too much, you know. Having a nice glass of whiskey there, Tim? No, this is this is actually Monster in a fancy glass. Okay, let's have a look. So, a pen. Go. Right. Let's have a look, Swan. So, hi Tim. It feels like a year since I participated in Whip Wednesday. God damn it. Already starting out the year with a pun? Come on. Question number 1. I've moved the pallets and clustered them in the corner. Do you feel like my scene has a bit of rest for the viewer? Let's have a look. Let's zoom in. Yeah, it does. It does. It does feel like... What was it last time? It's interesting, right? Because last time we had like the bed here, right? Like you had like a couple of pallets and there was like a bed here. We did lose that, right? So it's almost like I did like the aspect that it was a bed. So that we could give like the intention of like, oh, this is a space where people are staying for the long term, right? And I actually don't know. Was it actually a concern that we talked about last time? I don't necessarily think it was, but I might be wrong. But regardless, I mean, this is cool, right? We can still do the bed anyway. And maybe what we can do is, oh, we can have like a small bed here and then like a big bed here or something like that, right? Because we are talking about like a kid and a dad, right? So kid's bed and then like the dad's bed. Something like that. Because I mean, it wasn't too noisy before. I don't think that's like a big deal. Especially because like the walls themselves are like pretty empty, right? And we do need to give like a little bit of that like survival kind of scrappy kind of vibe going on anyway, right? So if we, I don't know, if we have like a little bit of space left where we can add some stuff, I think that's good. Because then what we can do is we can clutter some things next to the bed to kind of give the indication, like some additional storytelling or something, right? Right. Let's see. What was the other question here? That my scene has enough rest for the viewer. Yeah. I think it does. I think this is coming along like really nicely. Right? So we got like a little area that is coming together quite nice. What could be interesting is small things, but maybe like a spoon in there somewhere, you know? Indicating that they just literally ate or something like that, right? So it kind of feels like a little bit more lived in, right? And then what could be nice is having like a little light here that's like kind of shining out. Could be cool. Sorry, I'm getting carried away. Well, let's see. I've attached the grayscale images of my scene, and I'd like your thoughts regarding the value. So I've also been told that having a full black and full white values aren't good. But one of my inspirations is The Last of Us, and they seem to be doing it, right? So this is actually an interesting point, right? Because I have your scene here as an example. I think the main issue with having full black and full white values is that whenever you try to add additional highlights or shadows in those areas, that's no longer possible, right? Because if like an area is already black, if you then cast some shadow in that area, you're not going to see it, right? And you know what's causing like an example here? If let's say like we can kind of see what's happening here, right? It's like I can barely see where one object begins and another one ends, right? That is that is usually the reason why we don't really want to see. That's the issue with having like whites and blacks, right? So if we can also say that like the values are clipping, right? So this means that basically we don't have like a nice gradient where it comes to like our, let's say, like our most intense objects in the scene. Because clipping means that we remove like any sort of lighting information because we're pushing it above the actual range that we have, right? So what I mean by that is, so if we do like a small demonstration here. So let's say we do our levels, right? You can kind of see, this is what we mean by clipping. I don't know if I can make it bigger, but see this little area where like, you know that there's like values going above this, but they're clipping already. That means that there's information that were lost and we can't ever get that back. And then for example, like the more that we start cutting out like some of these areas, this is an area that looks horrible now, right? But that is why you don't really want to have like full black, because you can't really get like any sort of like lighting information in there anymore because it's already at the maximum value, right? So that's something to think about as a quick little example. Same here, right? It becomes difficult to read like the, oh, on the stream it's actually a little bit better. There's like a difference between like my screen and your screen. Yeah, just gotta watch out for those. That's the main reason why we do that, right? That is basically also the reason why you have a PBR, a validator node in your Substance Painter, for example. Because if you've never used it, what that does is PBR validation is basically trying to do this thing, but like on a material basis, right? So let's say you have your complete spectrum for colors, right? Let's say this is full black. Let's make it a little bit easier. No, let's keep it like this. So this is full black and white. we know that we can't have like a texture that is like full white because then we can't add highlights on top of it, right? So a PBR validation node is basically going to see, hey, we are not, your values need to be within this range instead. Right? Instead of the full range, is actually going to use like a range that we can still inject like highlights and shadows into it. And that's why PBR validation is an interesting node, because it does that checking for you. Slight side tangent, but I hope that was helpful. Yeah. So yeah, in short, I would definitely push it back a little bit, especially on the highlights. And maybe because one thing that I also saw, this is your reference image from The Last of Us, right? The way that their scene works is a little bit different, because their most intense values are the window itself and like stuff on the floor, right? Which then basically just like casts around like lighting in the rest of the scene. But you can actually see that it's not like targeted at like a space that you need to go, because it doesn't want to like overcompensate that area, right? So it is more casting it on the floor so that it can then be scattered around the scene to kind of create this effect of like more global illumination, right? I think that might also be something to look into. Whereas like some of the stuff in here might get too contrasty potentially. But yeah. Hope that helps one. Great stuff. Thank you for the updates. And sorry for the messy notes. Jesus, I didn't make any notes here. But yeah, since you're here, that's at least good. Otherwise, good luck trying to make sense of my scribbles. Thank you, Swan. Right, next person on the list, Leia. Let's have a look. Thank you, Tim. Very helpful. I'll definitely need to check out that validation note. Yeah, keep in mind that the validation node is only for textures, right? So I guess the equivalent is your histogram node or your levels node, if you want to do it by like your whole scene, right? Based on like a static image. All right, Leia, where's your work? Did I not have you in here? Why do I not have you in here? Why are you not in here? Oh, oh, that's weird. Okay, sorry for that. Let's quickly set that up. Yeah, I don't know why that happened. Right. So, copy the image. And then we need to look at what you were saying about like your quality levels, right? Or like your finished levels of completion. See, we don't necessarily need that one. I think we're good. Because you are working with like a level of completion, right? Like your L0 to L4. So I did ask you what your L3s and L4s were. So your L3s are correct pixel density, no blurry materials, albedo values are correct, metallic values are correct, basic showcase of blending, and then level like L3 geometry, right? The L3 geometry is kind of vague, right? Because again, we don't know what L3 means, right? So, I mean, it's not necessarily relevant for like the feedback now, but keep that in mind. Like, try to be super specific, right? So, for example, the difference between like L3 geometry and L4 geometry could be that L3 geometry um, has the geometry laid out with additional curviness to some of the beams, right? Because we're doing a lot of wood. So let's say additional curviness to the beams. And then your L4 could be tiny levels of variation where it matters, like on the silhouette, right? Because then we have something specific to aim for. Beside the point, but I just wanted to bring that up as like an example. Cool. Because also, I'll give you some extra examples. Is because your L4s, for example, are ground meshes are added, refined your texture blending in mesh paint, Houdini simulations are integrated. Another piece of advice there is to have levels of completion based on the asset, right? Because now it feels like we're lumping everything into the same thing, but that's like Houdini simulations are integrated is not relevant to like an asset that is static. Again, just talking about that. Okay, let's have a look at your questions. That is why I was asking those questions, right? Because your first question is, you've got 5 more days to finish your L3 sprint before you have 1 more month to final L4. What do you think I could improve in the next 5 days the most before going to L4? Because this is the reason why I ask, right? Because that means L3, I need to now pay attention to correct textile density, your materials, blending, and correct values, right? That's the majority of things that I need to pay attention to. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look here. So this is your roughness map, right? Let's bring it up here as well. Couple of things to look at. These edges, the pebbles. I think honestly the floor needs like a proper pass in terms of like response. It feels very flat still. So those two areas, they do need work in terms of your roughness variation. And then also what I feel right now is that you have a good base, but I want to see more broader variation. So what that means is, for example, what could be a good example to pick? There's one area in the wood texture that's not refined yet, and the ground is L4 work. Okay, so ground is L4, which is yeah, interesting. I mean, interesting that it's like a separate thing because it is such a big piece of the work still, right? So if we're no longer looking at like L4 quality levels or like L3 quality levels, I would be like, that floor needs a lot of work compared to the rest of the scene. That's like the weakest thing now. But you're saying that that's going to be solved in the next one. So let's have a look. What I was saying is I want to see more broader variations. So for example, under the roof, you're probably going to have the material is probably going to be duller. Duller. Sounds so weird to say. Less reflective than the areas that are exposed to the weather, right? So that can be something that could potentially be looked into. And that's whether you do that through like your vertex painting or your layering, or maybe even decals, right? And the same can also be done, like it would be nice to have some like broader variation, right? So for example, at the top of the rooftops, maybe has some like, I don't know, like a little bit more reflectivity compared to the bottom. Or yeah, same thing here, right? So that you can kind of see like streaks of stuff. But again, maybe that's decal work, right? That can definitely be looked at. So that we get, my goal with this is that we get more contrast, right? So that the object and the areas don't just become like big unified shapes or materials. We need to add some additional variation in them. For example, same thing with the texture here, right? Like what I love to do is indicate where people walk. So the center of like wood walkways are going to be like bright because people walk on it more, right? So they get shaven down and all that kind of stuff. So you see more of the bare bare wood underneath it, where some of the polish will remain on like the outer edges, for example, right? And that just makes like the whole thing a bit more interesting, right? And then you can start applying some of those like same elements on the rest of it too. Slightly saying the scene needs more contrast. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to infuse now a little bit, right? Is just we need to get away of like these big shapes of like samey feeling material. Like it's a good base, right? Don't get me wrong. It's a great base to work from. And we're in a good position at this point because this is also what the next step is going to be more about, right? But yeah, definitely trying to define those materials more and make them more interesting to look at. And yeah, that can be applied to like a lot of surfaces, right? So ground dirt just coming up from the walls as well. The roof shingles need the decals. I did a roof with Houdini instancing, which then sadly doesn't support mesh paint per shingle instance. Yeah. But that's okay, right? Like even if you have decals, like something there could be cool. Slightly annoying, but I get it. That's the limitations that we have to work with. Cool. So let's talk about some other stuff here. Yeah, those are the things that I would focus on specifically, right? If it's not the floor. There's a lot of, again, I don't know if this is like L4, what you're thinking. I'm still missing a lot of set dressing. Basically the thing that we talked about last week, right? Or like a couple of weeks ago. Just like little fences, little things to kind of like fence certain areas in and then like have like the road network connect with it. All that kind of stuff would be really, really cool. If that's L4, that's okay. I do like these walkways though. They look really, really nice. What would be the next steps once I added the material variation? Well, that's up to you, right? You have a plan for L4, right? Right? Let's see. So what was the second question? Because you had a second question as well, right? So my second question is, what do you think is missing in terms of geometry? Please exclude the ground. Oh, okay. I didn't read that before. That would be very beneficial to add. Thank you for the advice. I think again, I'm kind of going to repeat myself here, right? But 2 weeks ago we talked about like adding more fencing and like defining certain areas and all that kind of stuff, especially at the bottom of the courtyard. Could be really interesting. If we're then thinking about, it's honestly at this point, well, you still got a month, so that's like a lot of time still. I would think about like refining areas and thinking about like how, what does that mean, refining areas? I would think about like stuff that can be interesting to add, right? So like, for example, like a banner, like a flag or something like that. You know, we're like the top of the tower, maybe there's like, you know, like a flag here kind of subtly waving in the wind. Yeah, the staircase needs to be done still, so that's going to be really cool. Like having those like structures kind of help out with all this stuff too. That could be cool. Yeah, I would definitely have a look at some additional references if you wanna have a question here, right? Because like to me, I can think about a lot of stuff off the cuff, right? Like all these fences would be really, really cool. And I think you're not gonna need that much more when you do like some of these fences here. But that's gonna add a lot to the scene. And then it's literally thinking about like small stuff, right? Like, okay, we've got like the rough, well, I mean, not the rough, but like you got the buildings and all the big shapes in. How can we add more medium and small shapes, right? So what I'm thinking is that, cool, you got this rock here. Can we use that rock more, right? To like fill in some of the areas and really be specific with how we use it, right? For example, this area, I mean, this is work in progress still, I'm hoping, but let's see. So in this case, like this pillar of the staircase is going to end here roughly, right? Right, and then we can sort of like start set dressing specifically, right, with like a rock. It kind of is like holding the pillar in, maybe some small pebbles next to it. And that's the way that I would start building up like a lot of these areas, right? Like have certain areas where small pebbles are like nicely scattered. I want to see some grass coming onto the floor as well. So yeah. I want, okay, if we broaden this up, this is your second question. More geometry to add? More stones. Wood fences, tools, more level art. This is broad, right? But like using what you already have and making it way more interesting than it currently is could be really, really cool. There's so much you can do with like reusing the stuff that's already here, right? Taking a couple of these pillars and then, I don't know, building fences out of it. And building those unique spaces, you know, can add a lot. Same here, right? Like sometimes it might be nice to, you know, have like a rope. It's kind of just like hanging here. I love ropes. They're so good for set dressing. And it looks so cool. It makes everything so much more organic immediately. Right, and then we got this pillar. Maybe that's a rope here, and then maybe that goes there. But you can kind of see what I'm trying to do, right? Like I'm trying to make it look more unique, more handcrafted, because I think what happens when you use like procedural tools is that they're really good at generating all the stuff that you've done, right? And it looks great. But you lose that handcraftedness, right? And that's something that if you're doing polish, that will need to be infused back into the whole thing. And this is where I'm thinking about like a set of reusable pieces, right? Like the wooden beams, wooden pillars, wooden planks, the ropes. They are, once you have them, you can reuse them and combine them in any way you want. Make something like really interesting. Right, because then even if it's just like, okay, this guy has like a hanger and there's like just like a bunch of rope just hanging from it, right? That looks cool. And then maybe he has two, right? Because one is lonely. you know, and then, oh, there's going to be like a small pile of rope here, and there's going to be like a bucket. I don't know, it can be just like generic stuff, right? And maybe there's like an axe that sits into the wood here. Cool. You can see, like, start filling up the scene that way. Because yeah, once you got the ropes, then we can do so much cool stuff. We can have like a rope here with like a little lantern boy that's just like sitting in it. And then we can reuse that here. And then, yeah, maybe even here, right? Like this has a lantern here as well with like a bunch of ropes connecting to it, or like holding it in place. Sorry, I just love set dressing too much. I need to stop myself. But that's where I would focus my attention. Like really focus on looking at references and try to imagine, or like even for this stuff, like this is the one place where I do recommend looking at games like The Witcher or something, right? Like go into like a town of The Witcher. Like how does like their castle look like, right? And how do they want to do it? Or even have a look at like the tech demo that they did in The Witcher 4. How are they doing their set dressing? How dense does it feel, right? Because with games, you're trying to sell a fantasy, right? And like honestly, if you're trying to stay like historically accurate, like it's gonna be relatively boring. So we need to sell it, you know? Like just suggesting that was made in Far Cry 6. Let's go! I feel like I don't want to toot our own horn, but I feel like the maps that we did, because we were responsible for like all the what they call like the expeditions, right? That's the stuff that we did. I think I'm proud of like the stuff that we did there. Like the density that we managed to get, like the uniqueness of the locations, like it was really, really good stuff in there. But yeah. Thank you, Leia. Best of luck and have fun with the final month. Moving on. Lily is next. Lily is on the screen already. So question 1. I want to make the huts that you see and have a modular element to them. What would be the best way to make it modular? Have different roof pieces or different layers. So my question is like, why? Right? Like, if we expand the term modularity a bit, the way that I would approach it is I would have reusable, tileable materials and potentially, well, let's say tileable materials for this, right? And then I would create unique shapes per tent. So you can kind of reuse in like, you know, very traditional modular way where you make like one really cool hut and then you just duplicate it in Blender and then you change the shape and all that kind of stuff, but it's going to be a new asset and it's going to be a unique asset. That's what I would do in this case, because otherwise what is going to happen is you're going to try to make something that is pretty organic into a modular thing where that is never really going to work, right? Like modularity is great for like the stereotypical like New York high rises and all that kind of stuff, right? Reusable components are going to be really cool for that. And there's a bunch of other use cases too, but I don't think the huts necessarily would be the best. Because I mean, you could do, right? Like you could honestly make it like a separate rooftop and a separate house itself, and then swap the house out and like slap a roof on it. But then that's about it, right? That's also not really, in my opinion, the best use case of modularity anyway. So I personally don't think it's worth it to go for modularity here. So go with the way like I'm saying, right? Like make one really good house or like hut, with all the elements that you want to have, right? Like the thatch and again maybe some ropes and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what's in here. Yeah, you got the thatch. You can bind the thatch together with some ropes and all that kind of stuff. And then what you do is, let's say, the difference between this guy here is that there's 2 layers. Is you just duplicate this guy here, and then you remove like the top of it, and then you clean up like what's left of it, right? And then you have like your second house that has like a different shape. So yeah, make one and then duplicate that one. Because honestly, that's for stuff like this, that's the way that I love to work. Make one, duplicate, and then adjust, and then you got like your second one, which is good. And then you can do the same thing with that one as well, and then potentially like stuff here. But that means that you don't sacrifice like the really unique creative appeal for trying to make it modular, right? So yeah, that'll be my advice on the modularity there. Now we get to ropes. Lily, you know I love ropes. We just talked about ropes like way too much. Oh my god, what are you doing to me? Okay, let's see. So you're asking, would creating these ropes with a spline be the best idea? I've never used splines and was wondering what the best way would be to tackle this. I think splines are decent. I prefer the way that they work in Blender, just because you kind of have some like really cool tools and add-ons that you can immediately download to, let's say, hey, look, I select like, you can even draw drawings on top of shapes, right? And then it like creates like a rope for you and all that kind of stuff. There's some really cool things that you can do with that in Blender. Whereas I find doing splines in Unreal is pretty annoying in general. Yeah, that's the way that I kind of feel about it. That doesn't mean that they don't have a place, and I'm trying to think where. I think like if you have some sort of a procedural system that can generate air conditioning units with like pipes connecting them and all that kind of stuff, right? Where it's like fairly rigid, I think that's good. But when you're doing like very organic like ropes that are very, yeah, like the ones that you have, right? I think those are like a bit more annoying. Maybe in your case, what you could do is, I mean, maybe that's what you were thinking anyway, is this is unique, and then you just like string a little bit of rope between the two. That's like not a bad use case, right? Because in this case, like it is just you take a segment, and then the only thing that you move in is just moving this down. So that's like a really simple way of using splines, and I think that can work. But if you're thinking about using the splines to like wrap around like the skeleton and all that kind of stuff, I think, yeah, I would probably avoid that. Because that's gonna get like a little bit too tricky. I have to look into like an add-on for ropes. I have a bad habit of doing it by hand. No, Lily, if you don't want to use add-ons, you don't have to. All the ropes that I did for my medieval scene, where I have them like, I have like knots and I have them wrapping around and like logically folding around, I did that all by hand. There's a certain pleasure that I kind of get from like doing like all those things, and I want to have them in a specific way that I just do them by hand. Sometimes, you know, you really love doing that stuff, you can have a bit of fun with it, you know? Because yeah, I know that those add-ons exist, but like sometimes it's so fun to just, I don't know, do a bunch of stuff manually. But yeah, I do prefer doing them in Blender as like a static mesh and then just importing them in. I think that's my preferred way of working. Again, for the simple connections that you're doing, I think you could use a spline for that. Because that's a good introduction to how to use splines, especially in Unreal. So yeah, I would say give it a try, and then for anything more complex, I would just do it in Blender. Yeah, but good stuff, Lily. I love how this is coming along. I like it a lot. Yeah, and best of luck with future updates. It's looking cool. Yes, yes, yes. Right, next one. Next one. Oh, in the meantime, oh, sorry, I did miss you, Powertail. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to 2026. Hope you're doing well. In the meantime, I want to give you a reminder on something that I asked your opinion on. Let's see. Where did I add it? It would help if I can find it myself, huh? Oh, there we go. So a while back, we started asking for community feedback. And it would still be helpful to get your input on just that. So I'm going to add a link to our submission here if you want to give your feedback, what you think of the community, because I know the majority of you are going to be from the community anyway. That would be really cool. And I'm very thankful if you've done so already, because honestly, that is the thing that helps us the most in making the community better. It's been a while since we've done one, and I get a lot of ideas and inspiration from doing these. So if you have an idea, or if you have something that you want me to do or have a look into, feel free to call it out in that little questionnaire. Thank you. Anyway, who was next? Devious Phoenix. Let's have a look. Right. Cool stuff. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. Interesting looking piece. Let's have a look here. Where is your entry? There we go. So you update shot with finds. What did you update? What has changed? What? Oh, I see. Okay, okay. That's pretty minor. You should learn how to do backflips on streams. Oh my god, I'm like a wooden plank when it comes to flexibility, so there's no chance in hell that that's gonna happen. Cool. So you got a couple of questions here, Joshua. You got 3, which is banned, which is illegal. You can only have 2. Let's have a look. So question number 1. We'd love to get some feedback, particularly on the props placement and the textures. Using tileable materials for most props, and I haven't done any RGB masking. How does the building, trim sheet, and tileable textures look? Okay, so we can smash those together. Yeah, and then number 3 is I only have 3 weeks left and I need to finish this before the end of January. So are there any big glaring things I need to focus on, fix before it's done? Okay, so tileable masks. How does the building and tileable textures look? So, okay. I'm gonna mash a bunch of stuff together, right? So some of the biggest things that I see that could definitely be improved is the first one that I can tell is the 3D feel. We need to get rid of that. The way that happens is we need to make the shapes more organic. Or handmade. That means going through, especially the building, focusing on the silhouette and making sure that, like, instead of it all being super straight, try to break up some of these lines, you know, like add a little bit of curve and a little bit of just like offset into it, because that's going to help a lot, right? Same thing for all of this. This is all super straight and super, it's almost like mechanical, you know? So give it a little bit of curve, right? Like play around with the sizing, like have like a bit of curve in the wood and make it feel like it's handcrafted, right? That would always be my biggest priority. Make it feel more handcrafted. So that's the 3D feel that we're talking about. We don't want to get rid of that. I mean, we do want to get rid of that. Sorry. And then when it comes to the tilables, I mean, you haven't done RGB masking for the props, right? But the tilables also need like a bunch of blending, right? And they need like a logic blend. So what I mean by that is, so logic blend of materials is just, okay, the bottom, that's going to have like a bit of dirt, right? Because we are in a sandy environment, so I would expect dirt buildup at the bottom. The top, you have moss, which is cool. Where does moss grow? You know, thinking about that. And trying to make it like a bit more logical where that happens to be the case, right? And maybe even think about like, okay, how can we help it connect like through like a variation of areas, right? Because I love when like these textures kind of help blend things together, right? So for example, you have moss growing here. It's a wet, moist area. It's cool. And you just have less here, right? And you can have the same thing here, right? Like I know that you just did vines, but like the vines and the moss are actually gonna help like blend the two together as well. But because they support each other, right? Like you can even use the moss as just like a back layer of the vines, which is gonna look really cool. And then also just to bring in your image here. That's the new thing, which is hopefully same aspect ratio. Whee! Okay. So that works. So that's what I was saying, right? Like a logical blend of the materials. So dirt at the bottom, moss on top, having some sort of like additional variation that you can use here or there. And then also this kind of goes back to like number one, like try to pick a couple of areas where you are specifically breaking up like the pristine look, right? Because all these roof styles are perfect, you know? We don't need that. Like pick a couple of them that are like missing, or even like, I don't know, they come out like a bit more than they do now, right? Because it feels like everything is too perfect. And we need to find a way to break that up. So yeah, moss on top, dirt at the bottom. Some additional color variation could be good. There's color variation. Speeding through this real quick. Have a look. Yeah, and I think even though you haven't done like the RGB masking, right? I mean, even when you do the RGB masking, what is going to become like even more clear is that when you do good masking on the assets, that you're gonna notice yourself that you are gonna need some sort of masking on the building too. Henrik is saying the trees are the same size everywhere on the right, and the lines with the mountain in the back make the lines cut with the mountain in the back. Let's have a look. Yeah. Yeah, some like variation in the trees could be cool as well. Could add to it too. Let's see. Okay, interestingly, So this is a rough point. But if you are going to have a tree in the foreground, which is cool. I like it there as a foreground element. I like what it's doing to the composition. It needs to look better. It needs to, the foliage cards needs to look better because you can clearly see that they're just like flat planes, right? So we need to add some like three-dimensionality to them. Also maybe the growth of it looks a bit weird, unnatural. So making sure that if you put something in the foreground that's going to demand a little bit of attention, that it needs to look the part and like hold up to scrutiny, right? So no flat leaf cards. And improve the generation of the tree. I mean, there's a couple of options here, right? Like, this is the way, like, whenever I give this feedback, there's always a couple of options. You could either choose to, like, okay, we're going to push the tree a little bit more to the side, make it less of a thing in the foreground, and then maybe fill up the gap with something else, right? If you really feel like you need to have, like, such a big foreground element there. Or we can do what I just mentioned, right? Like, make the foreground element look really, really good. Because I think, and this always happens, like in comparison, the tree in comparison to like the building itself, especially with the way that we're going to do like all the adjustments to it, the tree is going to demand more work. We need to make that look better than it currently does. Yeah, good stuff on like all the other things. I do like the way that they did like some of the more, yeah, some of this like foliage in the foreground looks good. I also like how pleasant the colors are, which is cool. I would potentially invest a bit more time in the clouds as well. So let's see. So we talked about like the foreground tree. And clouds and volumetrics could use like a bunch of work. Okay. Bunch of feedback. Yeah, 3 weeks left. Joshua, it's going to be a busy 3 weeks, you know? Not to discourage you at all, right? I think you have an amazing piece, and honestly, like, to deliver it to such a quality that it's already at, really good job. It's just, yeah, get in there, crush those last 3 weeks, focus on the things that are most apparent, right? Like any big issues that you see, like try to whittle them down as quickly as possible. Yeah, see where you end up, right? I would say best of luck and keep us in the loop, man. Looking forward to seeing this done. Right. Let's have a look. Who was next then? Route 1 was next, and then we got Eden. Gotcha, thank you so much. No worries. Good luck, man. Good luck. Hello, Route 1. I had an interesting comment here based on your question that you got from me this week. So you asked me, hi Tim, for Whip, is there anything you can see that doesn't fit right in your eyes so far in the scene? That's a difficult one, right? Like, doesn't fit right in your eyes so far in the scene when a scene is still in Whip, you know? I was like, I don't know what you want me to necessarily answer on that question. And I was thinking about like the conversation that we had on a while back where you've done some of those changes, but did we actually talk about this? I think, yeah, the background is missing. I think that's still like a big part of like what I'm missing to the scene now. And that hasn't changed, or there isn't like an indication of that changing soon, right? So I would say, I don't know, background still missing. I would also say interesting that you chose to go for a more orange kind of look, because so before you had before it was always more yellowish with blue, right? Which is sort of like inspired by the concept art. But now it feels more greenish with orange, which I don't know is as effective as it was before. Plus, it also feels like this is like super intense when it comes to like light intensity now. Yeah, so the color change I'm not necessarily like a big fan of. Because I'm thinking what could cause the light to be green, right? Like if you have, I don't know, there's not a lot of, or greenish, I guess. I was thinking about how a storm works, and if it was more blue, the moon's like if it was more blue, the moons be shown, and the scene is storm. I'm not too sure what you mean by that. Like how a storm works. Is this supposed to be in a storm? Maybe I'm not aware of like the story that you want to do for the scene, actually. Yeah. I'll give you some little bit to get back on that. There's some other stuff as well. So one thing that I've always liked to the scene is that you kind of have like this very nice like swoop kind of taking you into the scene, right? Very pleasing. It feels yeah, it feels very nice to look at, right? Like it really guides you nicely into the scene. Where this, with the new placement of like all the new meshes, kind of got distorted somewhat, right? So it kind of became like this weird little funnel that we're looking into. Where like I'm kind of missing that like weird little that curve that we had before. Slate is saying I do like the replication of the rocks. Yeah, I think the rocks have definitely improved compared to last week as well, for sure. Because now, if I remove like the concept art a little bit as well, the top of the scene, which was also a comment that we talked about last time, feels way more dynamic and feels way more interesting already, which is really good. But one, you're saying I was thinking how a snowstorm works at night. Basically, and the blue tones will be less of a storm. The blue tones will be less of a storm. I'm not too sure, actually. So, okay. Let me see. Let me see if I can find some pictures here. Like, cause the moon is shown. Yeah, but like, think about this, right? Like, how do you get green light? Like, how do you get green light in your environment, right? Like, the only way that I've seen that naturally happen is when you have like an aura borealis, right? Like the, what are they called again? Oh, northern lights. Those are the ones. That's like the only natural occurrence that I can think of, right? I was thinking about the lamp. Is this stream at this time of the year? What you mean, Josh? Of course it is this time of the year. Let me see. I was gonna look up. I don't know if I have some good pictures though, because we had like a bunch of snow here. Oh, right here in your stream. No, unfortunately, I've never seen it. Oh, such a shame. I don't have good pictures actually. I probably have pictures on my camera. Just change it to more bluish and it looks better. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's never bad to stick with like the tried and true, right? Also because yeah, moonlight is gonna cascade from like a white surface, right? The snow. So you're never gonna get like green bounce light away. Long story short. Cool. But those are the biggest things. The color change and then also like the curve change, right? Like so the composition, I guess. Oh my god, I cannot write. So yeah, those are the biggest things that I would take a look at. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, definitely the background. Like at least try to get something in there, right? Because right now it just feels like we're looking at the edge of a cliff. And it's going to be helpful to the whole scene. But yeah. Good luck with that, right one. Looking forward to next week's update. We need to pick up the pace as well because, oh my god, I've not been paying attention to time. So I think, are we free for all yet? Not sure. Oh no, Eden. So like at Eden's work first. Let's have a look. So Eden's working on the sword. Is it okay to use megascans for the snow piles, etc.? I mean, it is okay to use. I wouldn't recommend it in your case because it is the majority of the scene, right? So what you could do is look at how Megascans does their snow piles, get inspired by them, and then see how you can get somewhat close to them, right? But because it is a big component of your scene, I would try to make them yourself. But I mean, the majority of like snow environments comes down to like how you blend between your meshes and your terrain. And then the rest of it can honestly just use like a tileable for the most part. A tileable and some like blending between the underlying rock layer, right? But you already have that anyway. So it's just figuring out like how you now blend between like, let's say a rock with like some snow on top of it with like the rest of the terrain. Right, Eden. I decided to render this in Unreal and lit it, and I was wondering how to balance the presentation lighting. It depends on what you mean by balance, right? I would have a look at some of the workshops that we have. Let's start there, right? Again, not a lighting artist myself, so I think that would be like a better shout for you to be more helpful. And then also you are trying to figure out how to do the flame and the candle, because I'm struggling to figure out like if it should be more cartoony or more rendered. And my recommendation for that is always when you're thinking about something, just do the first thing that comes up and then see if you like it and then pivot if you don't, right? Because oftentimes what we do is that we just overthink stuff and then we don't put stuff in 3D, which actually helps us, right? So if you're ever stuck with something, it's good to just do the first thing that comes to mind, and then if you don't like it, you can just do the other thing, right? So if this was me in my case, what I would do, hey, I don't know what the flame style is yet. I'm gonna try things. And what that means is, what is the quickest, dirtiest thing that I can do to kind of get something like on the table, right? because that's what you want to focus on. You don't want to spend a bunch of time on something that you can probably potentially not even use, right? So in my case, I'm like, okay, I am just going to use like a simple painted like candle with an alpha. I'm going to put that on a plane and I'm going to put that right where I want the candle to be, right? Maybe refine the textures and all that kind of stuff so that it's like a little bit of a missive. Test it all out. Does it look good? Yes. Then you can go on to like animate and potentially align to the camera or make it a 3D, which I don't think you need to do. If it doesn't work, then try a different style, right? But it's because like you're doing like a 2D painting that you can really quickly just like switch to a different style, which is good. Right? So that's like in general a good way to like unblock yourself. You just want to get stuff on the table as quick as you can and then go from there. So yeah, that's what I would do. And then on the presentation, yeah. Yeah, again, I would definitely think about Hi Eden, I don't want it to be garish. What does that mean? Right? Because like oftentimes what we say is like I don't let me look this up. Maybe this is like English language thing that I don't mean. Okay, garish is glaring, starey, showy, dazzling, or vulgarly gaudy. It can also be extravagantly gay or flightly. Okay, there's a bunch of stuff for this. Unpleasantly bright. That's also a thing. Okay, that makes more sense. That's a lot of stuff. Yeah, so what do you mean by that specifically? That might be helpful. Showy or too brightly colored, I guess. That's the most common thing that I see. Yeah, but I would say for me, I think the lighting currently is okay. I just want to see like what you're gonna do with the presentation, right? Also, maybe the only thing that I would watch out for is this area, because that just feels like it's lit from like an area that I can't even see, and it's trying to focus my attention to something where I don't know. There's nothing necessarily that interesting happening there, right? Because technically what we want with the candle sword is that we are going to be focusing on the candle, right? Like that's where we want to like our attention to be. And I think with the way that this is like textured and lit up, I think that's already doing a good job. And I think it's only going to improve when we then have like a candle with like maybe like a little light source that is going to like accentuate some of these edges, right? I think that's also going to be cool. So yeah, I would try that. I don't want the lighting to drown the values. Yeah, I think that's what's happening at the bottom, right? It feels like a bit overly lit. But that's the only thing that I can see. I would watch out with like, I mean, maybe this is also, it might just be a resolution thing. I was gonna say like watch out with like these very sharp edges that you have here, right? Come on. Like these very sharp pixelated edges, that might be just like a resolution thing though. Yeah. Oh my god, English. I'm just making fun of you, Eden. But yeah, I get it. I get it. So that's what I would pay attention to. Yeah. Yeah, honestly, the way that I always approach lighting, and this is kind of like feels like a vague explanation, but I try to paint with light, right? So I usually start with like the stereotypical three light setup, right? Like 3-point lighting setup. Then it's like, okay, like I'm just gonna move stuff around until it like captures like an interesting part of the asset, right? Yeah. That's all I have to say, Eden. Best of luck. Hope that was helpful. Let's see. So, anyways, I've done a lot of work on pushing the values, and I really don't want to lose that, especially when I have been hand painting those details. Yeah, I think that's where again like painting with light comes in handy, right? Because it allows you to accentuate certain elements, but that just comes down to like having an intensity on your light that is subtle enough, or like it's well balanced, right? That's a better way of saying it. And that just comes down to like doing these exercises, right? Where it's like, too much light here. Okay, reduce that light, or maybe even turn it into a rectangular light so that you can focus on a different area that it doesn't like look at like the bottom. Yeah. Good stuff, Eden. Right. Who was next? Do we still have people left? Dun, dun, dun. Nope. I think we're doing free for all, so that's good. Let's also make up some speed potentially. So let's start out with the first one. The first one is from Benji. Welcome to the community. Lovely to have you. You're starting off this project as an idea to remake an old university project. I wanted to keep it faithful, but the original project had a lot of problems. So it's going to look up very differently, with some recurring elements from the original. Just looking for general feedbacks and idea, but I'm kind of winging it right now. So, this is an interesting one, because if you tell me that you're winging it, and yeah, I guess I didn't find like a more elegant way of saying this, but like if you're coming to me, but like, hey, can you help me with like feedback and ideas, but you're also just winging it, then I feel like we don't need to start with like my ideas and what I can contribute to the scene, but we need to start out with what you are thinking about the scene, right? Because if you're just winging it, we can't do that. That's like a big red flag to me already. Like I want to at least know like, hey, what is the story of the scene? What are your references? Do you have a mood board? Because I mean, it's your work, right? It's not mine. So if I now start adding a bunch of ideas, then I'm sort of doing the work for you, and that's not what I'm here to do necessarily, right? So I would say for next week, give me a short synopsis of like your research, what you want to build, and what the scene is supposed to be, right? And then I can workshop like some additional ideas on top of it. That could be cool, but yeah, I would say winging it in the general context of doing environment art is not necessarily the best way to work. Because yeah, especially on a project that can potentially take like multiple weeks, if not multiple months, right? If we're talking about big projects, we don't want to wing it. We want to put our effort where it matters, right? And stay on track. Right. So that's honestly all I have to say, Ben. I know that this is probably like a bit harsh, but I think it's for the best, right? So if next week you come up with like a story, some references, and some of your own ideas, then I would love to workshop some stuff with you, and I'll put my 2 cents into the mix as well. I think that would be great. So yeah, we'll see you next week, Ben. Again, welcome to the community, and looking forward to seeing your work next week. Then we have Frigga. Welcome, Frigga. Happy New Year. I'm experimenting with the ocean water for the first time, struggling with the opacity and the distance, making a shipwreck. I would appreciate your analytical eye to improve the piece. Due to my schedule, I can't be present for the live session. I'll watch the recording tomorrow. That's okay. I mean, what would be helpful here from me, Frigga, is also if you could ask like 2 questions or something like that, that could be most helpful to you, right? In general, I try to stay away from like general feedback, even though I am currently somewhat changing my stance on that, but because I feel like sometimes it might also be restrictive, but we'll see. Something for me to worry about. What I did write down though is, let me actually make this a bit more readable. There we go. Okay, so David, did I forget you? I did? Did I? Okay, could be. Let's see. David, you'll have to remind me. I think I might have used the wrong emoji. Yeah, that's okay. As long as you know that we forgot you, then it's all good. Remind me. Who are you in the list? Because I got you here as David. But if you could say me your Discord name potentially, it would be good. I know we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. Dang it, but I keep forgetting. Memory like a sieve here. After Eden. Oh no. Oh, I see. Yeah. There might be a little bit of delay as well. Oh yeah, there we go. I see. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, but let me know the Discord name, and then we can have a look at it. In the meantime, I'll finish this one off for Frigga. Have a look. So Frigga, let's go back to what you were saying. So I was saying, in your case, you have a massive scene, right? I honestly, I'm missing some context, right? I don't know what your skill level is and all that kind of stuff. But this is my first gut instinct, where it would be good to just focus on one thing and trying to make it like really, really good, rather than having this like very, very ambitious and open scene. Because the benefit is, like, if you make the components of, let's say, the Skull Cave, right, that you have here, you can reuse those components and just like make the rest of the island with like ease, right? So that's what I would say, like one focal point with a higher impact, right? That means that the higher impact is that we can focus on quality over quantity, right? Which is always going to be more important. Yeah, that's what I would say. Because the rest of it, you know, like if we look at the overview here, once we do like this area, that means that we can also do like this entire island and all these rocks in the ocean as well, because they're just going to be reused. And then the only thing that we need to do is we need to like add a boat, and then we can do the rest of the scene, right? But I can already tell you, like, this boat, if you want to do it properly and you want to use that in the foreground in some of your shots, Um, that's going to require like a lot of work. David, in the meantime, can you let me know what your Discord name is, or alternatively, tag me in Discord so that I know which like thread is from you? That would be helpful, and we can look at your work next. Because Frigga, yeah, this little section looks amazing here, right? Like I think that has a lot of potential, like doing the skull cave. I think that could look really sick. But I'm also thinking that the cave itself could be cool, but then we're gonna need to add a lot to it to make it even more interesting than it currently is, right? So I'm thinking, you know, like the skull cave looks really sick. I think that could be freaking amazing. Right, so we have this like giant skull coming forward. But then yeah, we need something to be like filled inside of it, right? Like whether it is like giant piles of freaking cash, maybe there's like, I don't know, like scaffolding that's holding it up, right? And maybe there's like a camp that people build like next to it or something like that. But it's like, how do we then elevate like this entire let's say this entire camp to like the next level, right? Because your thing would definitely work, but I mean, I feel like it would be really cool to make it more impactful and more high quality than let's say only the skull that is embedded in like the rock, right? We're gonna give it some soul. And then we can think about like, you know, like little stashes and little people sleeping here, and I don't know, piles of money. And then we're gonna really like sell the fantasy, right? Yeah. And then we can slowly expand outwards, right? Because I like the idea, right? I really do. I really like the pirate fantasy, right? It's something that is very, very inspiring to work in. I just want to make sure that we can hit like maximum level, like maximum quality on this, right? Oh, and then also like a couple of other things. Again, this could be amazing. I would also say keep the camera at eye level, right? Because that helps us get immersed in this scene as well. So because if we can imagine ourselves like walking in the scene, that's always going to be more helpful, or like more immersive, right? Like not helpful. Yeah, that's also one thing that I would definitely do. Let's see. Was there anything else that I can help you with, Frigga? Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for presenting your work, and I'm looking forward to seeing this come together. Right. Next one then is Zoe. Zoe's asking for some VFX feedback, which is probably going to be relatively short from my end, to be honest, because I mean, I'm a game guy, you know? I do games. That's what I do. So let's see. I'm creating a film study of Frankenstein's lab for the new film on Netflix. My aim is to find the balance between focusing on bigger picture and not on individual assets while being hyper realistic enough for film. Well, see, here's where my knowledge is gonna lack a little bit, right? Because everything that I do has always been game focused. But let's see. I think a lot of this realism will come from the textures, but at this stage, is there anything you can point out that looks too CG that I need to fix at this point? I mean, not immediately. Nothing that comes to mind, like immediately, right? But I do agree that a lot of it's going to come from the textures, even when it comes to the actual geometry, right? Because, like, I mean, if you're just going to do an offline render of the scene anyway, right? You can freaking just slap displacement on it and make it look sick, you know? So that's a benefit that you have in offline rendering or like VFX workflows compared to game art, right? Because yeah, we have considerate performance restrictions. So yeah, that would be like the thing that I would experiment with if you don't want to focus on an individual asset. Like just try to get the most out of using displacement or anything like that to kind of help you get more fidelity out of your assets, right? Um, Honestly, that's about it, Zoe. I'm not going to be too helpful here when it comes to specifics, and I also don't want to speak out of turn from something that I don't really know about. So, yeah, sorry that I couldn't be more helpful, but I do wish you the best of luck with this project. Right, Dadu, let's have a look. Dadu's working on a cool radio. Dadu has 2 questions, so the first one is about portfolio presentation, right? That's basically what it comes down to. You have 2 renders with a table and a video. With a dezoom of the camera and an animation in the screen, and for the other, some basic renders showcasing the textures with basic background colors, like a good idea, the one that a thumbnail that I made. Okay, so basically the question here is it a good idea to have 2 static renders, 2 beauty renders, a video, and then have a renders like these where it's more like in a neutral presentation, right? And my thought process on this has always been the same, right? For your portfolio, what you want to do, especially for a game art portfolio, is you want to hit the marks when it comes to the artistic side, but also on the technical side, right? So what this means is that the way that I usually structure my portfolio pieces, or I recommend other people to do the same, is we start out with a video that autoplays, then we have a couple of beauty shots, then you could potentially have like clean renders, right? Like something that doesn't have like a distracting background around it. And then we go into the breakdown, right? So that basically means that we want to capture people's attention with the artistic and the cool stuff as we drag them down to the technical stuff, right? Because what is going to happen is most people, they will come for this, and then I don't know, at a certain point they will leave, right? Because they're only interested in like the beautiful stuff. But a recruiter or like a person from the industry is actually going to have a look through the entire thing, and they probably have more interest in the stuff down here compared to the stuff up here. So that's the reason why I build it up, because you want to capture people's attention and then hold them for as long as you can, right? And it's also, in my opinion, like the most fluid way to present things as well. Or sort of like the standard, right? So second question is for the thumbnail. I have 4 tests and I would like to know your thoughts on them. Before I go into my thoughts when it comes to thumbnails, what I would do is always test on the front page of ArtStation. Right, so that means that you just grab like a screenshot from ArtStation. This is more information for like other people, and you have like the grid with like all the latest work, right? Cool. And then you just like randomly replace like a couple of those tiles with like your screenshots. And you can kind of compare to see which one you like the best, right? You try, but you weren't sure. Well, but here's the thing though, right? Like, I mean, there's not really going to be a way for me to tell you with 100% certainty which one you should pick, right? Because everything kind of has like pros and cons to it, I would say. And that's where at a certain point you have to decide for yourself, right? So I'll give you my thoughts. Let me move this to the side. I mean, we don't really need this, so. Okay, I'm gonna make it slightly easier. This one is out of the running. It just feels like there's a little artifact on the bottom that is just like, oh, there's like a white bit of space that is just distracting a little bit, right? Okay, should we do a vote? Let's go. Okay, I'll give it numbers, right? So let me put this in the middle of the screen. We're gonna have A, B, and C. Right, so feel free to cast your vote on your thumbnail. It is a really nice asset. It is really nice. I am not even gonna allow you to pick like D. It's off the table. Slate is saying A. Justine is saying A as well. So we got 2 votes. B is too vertical. Oh, you mean too flat? Yeah. Justine, what are you doing? A with the stable from C? You're cheating. You can't be doing this. You can't be combining stuff. I think that might be literally the same table though. Oh, I see. It would be, yeah, I see what you're saying. Maybe it would be cool to have like a table like here, right? Like it stops a bit earlier. It could be a good idea. Be a good idea. Okay. We'll add that to the mix. Because I do like that as well. Let's see. So what do we have? So Route 1 is saying C. So we got 1 vote for C. Josh is saying A. We've got Designer saying C. C because of the nicer angle. That was almost a double vote. I was almost going to count you there. Yeah, and then Slate is saying, I do prefer the white background in my opinion. Yeah, here's an interesting thing, right? Like, so it's almost a choice, right? Like if you think about like thumbnail design, especially when you're doing YouTube stuff. I think also in my opinion, I would probably say C is my preferred one, I think. But I can also see A working if we then have like the table in the foreground, right? I think that's a good point from Justine so that we get like a little bit more depth. I think that's cool. It's just the only thing why I'm slightly hesitant about like A is because we have like this is just like dead space, right? Like we're not really using a lot of the thumbnail. Now, B can potentially also be a good one for the pure reason of contrast, right? Because we have like an asset that is surrounded by white, which means that wherever it's gonna show up, it's gonna stand out on ArtStation front page. Is that the only reason why you should do like thumbnail design like that? No, but it can help you stand out, right? I'm actually curious to see if someone else is doing this, right? Because you can... Oh, actually, let's make this a little bit more relevant, right? Let's do game art. Let's make it even more relevant. Where's 3D? Where is 3D? Game art. Here we go. Let's do this. There's not a lot of white in here, right? So if your sole purpose was to stand out, having something on a white background, right, like this, does stand out. Again, not saying that should be the only reason why you do stuff, but it can definitely help. So that's why, right? Like that's why at a certain point you kind of have to decide like what you want to do with your thumbnails, right? In this case, I think, in my opinion, I think I still go for C, right? So, that kind of makes like C the winner, I guess. But it's close. Like it's fairly comparable, right? Also, there's another thing here. Careful with like the high pass filter or like the noise, because there is a lot of noise happening here, which looks like really unnatural. And I think it's a bit too much. But that's like the only thing that I can say. Like the main thing that immediately jumps out to me, at least. So yeah. But yeah, like other people have said, like it looks awesome, you know? So great stuff. I love the way that you're setting this up. I love the texturing. So yeah, good stuff to do. Love it. We'll correct this. Thank you. No worries. And thank you all for participating in the vote. Oh, you know what? Okay, this is something that just came up. Like, you know what would be cool? Would be a fun thing is that we have like a community vote for like the best work of the week or something like that. I think that could be fun. Something to have on the stream. Little community voting going on. That would be fun. We'll have a look into something like that. Right. Okay, we're gonna continue. Last four for the night. Moment. Let's see. Where is your work? Question 1. I want some feedback regarding my set dressing. I'm creating pockets of interest in my environment, like kids playing with these toys. And I was wondering if it's clear that the kids were playing with these before they evacuated their homes all of a sudden. Okay. So we're really talking about like these little things, right? It's honestly not clear at this point, because there's nothing to really tie it to, right? Like what the main question here is not necessarily like why did the kids stop playing, but how do we visualize like everyone leaving immediately, right? Because what does that look like, right? Like if you have to visualize how some people have to suddenly leave, like how do we do that, right? You could have like open doors, left behind stuff, like luggage, you know, like anything like that. Like we need to focus on like how to visualize sudden leaving, because right now it just feels like, oh, they were having fun and then they're just like, oh, we're done playing, okay, we're gonna go back inside, right? Very normal thing for a kid to do, just be like, oh fuck, like I don't know, I need to go inside to get some food, you know? But it's more like how do we showcase that people have to leave in a hurry? That's the main thing. Hello, Fair. Happy New Year. How are you doing? How are you doing? Did you have a good time off? Going back to the second question here for a moment is, do you think it's fine not indicating what caused the family here to leave and leave it being unknown, or should I communicate that to the viewer? You don't need to necessarily communicate like why they left, right? But you need to communicate that they left. Like, I think you can kind of keep it somewhat vague, right? I think that's okay. Like, people can. There's oftentimes a balance between do you try to tell everything, or like what do you leave up until someone's discretion, right? So yeah, it kind of goes back into the same thing, right? So tell me that they left. Yeah. Is that they left, not why they left, right? Like, the why is optional. I want to see that they left first, right? Because that's not really clear yet. And that's going to be a tricky one, right? Like, you'll have to figure out, like, maybe, I don't know, like open doors, left behind stuff, like luggage, like trucks leaving. Yeah, but that's the main thing that I would focus on. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would start moment. And then we can kind of, if we have that in place, then we can see if we need to visualize why they left, right? But I don't think you need to. My gut instinct. Yeah. Good luck with the scene. Cool to see the updates. Thank you for sharing. Bear's asking, all good, Tim. How are you? I'm good. Yeah. I'm good. As I mentioned before, I started doing contract work. First time ever doing a remote contract. So, I mean, it's not going to be a surprise. I still work for the same company that I used to work for before. But it is interesting being able to do it remote now, which I very much enjoy. So we've been making the most of it. Like, we've been walking a lot in the snow because there's a lot of snow here in Belgium. And I think what I might do is like go out for like a small walk in a little bit as well, like after the stream. Enjoy it while it lasts, because like I think this is the most snow that like anyone has ever seen. Well, not ever, but like seen it a long time in Belgium. So usually it's like one day and then it just turns into muck and it's like ugh. But now we actually have like, I don't know, like 10 centimeters, 10, 15 centimeters in our garden, which is amazing. Right. Are you working for Ubisoft? No, working for Playgrounds again. Playground Games. That was the company that I was with for like the past year and a half. So, but we left the UK in September, right? And since then, when we moved, I was doing the team challenge and all that kind of stuff. And then we negotiated to come back on contract basis. So, yeah. Happy to be back. It's good to be back with the team. This time on contract basis. Let's see. Sadvik is making some cool sci-fi Walkman. Took some time off since I was feeling burned out from a sci-fi environment project, and since I've started doing some fun things, including profiling in Houdini, and I miss old school modeling and texturing, I started to make a small prop. We lost some feedback on the textures and how the composition renders feels. Okay. Again, fair warning, I am not a texture or prop guy, right? But do keep that in mind. That's gonna be, yeah, that's gonna be rotating. I think overall it looks really, really cool already. I would my first instinct is to say I would focus more on directional interaction. What that means is like really think about like how the different particles like parts are going to move. For example, because this cartridge is going to slot in here, right? So that means that we're going to see like some sort of like scraping happening here, right? Because that's where the cartridge is slot in. Because think about the interaction, right? Like you are probably going to be pushing it in here this way and then pushing it underneath this lip and then it clicks into place or something, right? Oh, there's a lip here. Yeah, so, okay, that makes it easier. Because that means that we're going to have, like, damage, like, on this little edge. And then also, so... So yeah, we're gonna have like friction being introduced there. Put on some other music. So friction by interaction, and then also like because this is gonna be like a rotating thing, right? Like we are probably not gonna see directional damage. We are gonna see circular damage, right? Because that's the way that these things work, right? Like if this is gonna be rotating, the damage is not gonna be straight. It is gonna be damaged or like, I don't know, worn from like the rotations that it's doing, right? Because the texturing in this case is very indicative of how the thing is working, right? So that's where it kind of goes into, yeah, being very specific with like how things are slotting into each other and how they interact with each other. So for example, again, where the cartridge is going to be slotting in, right? There's going to be more damage at the front than there is going to be at the back, right? And then what we can do is like here, because we're slotting stuff in, what is going to happen is that probably like a bunch of like dust and gunk and all that kind of stuff is gonna get stuck in it. So this is probably going to be like pretty nasty back here, right? And that's the way that I would approach like the rest of the scene, or not the scene, the asset, right? So again, good indication here. All the buttons are probably going to be more worn compared to the rest of it because that's the place where you interact the most, right? And you press all the buttons and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's something good to keep in mind. You can kind of see that here, right? Like you can see at the edges, like a bunch of chips and all that kind of stuff, because that's normal, right? The silhouette is gonna take more of the damage compared to the rest of the items or the rest of the edges. So yeah, I would definitely think about like those things more and be more specific with how you then do damage on those parts, right? Yeah, and for this, like you could do some like really cool stuff where like the sticker is ripped to a certain degree, and then maybe like this corner is more fadey, right? Because that's from friction. So it's really, I mean, I'm going over the same thing over and over, it feels like, right? But it's more thinking about like how you would interact with the prop. And let's say it like if it's just from normal friction, that damage is going to look different compared to like if you scrape it into something, right? It's a rip versus like a fade. And that can indicate a lot, right? But yeah, I think that's all I'll say about this one. I do already really like it. It's just when you're gonna have like these close-up shots, you're gonna have to go for like really close-up, like render quality stuff, right? Like really specific things. like dirt in these slots, dirt in these like individual things. Maybe like one of them is stuffed up with like gunk. A couple of them are open. You know, there's some really, really cool stuff that you can do with it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to how you're gonna do that. Let's switch over to Jake. Right. Before we do that, Fairmora is saying remote work sounds actually fun. Yeah, I mean, it has pros and cons, right? Like, the big con right now is that obviously I know the entire team from before, so I don't really have like issues integrating because like it's like I'm back, right? Which is like easy. But I can imagine myself like if I was like a new person on the team, that it would be like really difficult to like integrate that way. Because somewhat earlier in the stream, we did mention that like the best way to network and to really get to know people is being there physically, right? So it can react on their body language and you get to bond in like a more intimate way, right? Than you otherwise would. So the big con is that I can't annoy you at your desk, Tim. Don't lie. Yeah, that's also true. I mean, we're still sending each other like fucked up gifts anyway, so that's a bonus point. But yeah, that's potentially the thing that I tend to miss the most is that it is just nice to be around other people doing the same thing that you're doing, and also it's not even like work related most of the time, right? Like sometimes there's conversations that happen only in the office that you have to be there to witness them, right? And it's small stuff, right? Like just talking about random stuff, and then the whole team is like jumping into the conversation, and you get pulled in too, and it's like this is a team conversation that we're having now, right? So that's the cool stuff. But honestly, like I've had a lot of those experiences, and I'm glad that I have them. But there's also like a bunch of really beneficial things about working from home, right? I don't have a commute. In this case, I also have the additional benefit of living in like an area that doesn't have like a fucking sucky like infrastructure, you know? So that's the thing that I'm really happy with. There's a stupid thing that we always say. So me and my partner, when we go for a walk, especially now because it's like 20 centimeters snow outside, we get back and we come into the house and it's like, oh my god, we complain about how hot it is inside the house because we actually have insulation now, you know? And if you're from the UK, you know how big of a deal that is because I don't know, they can't get their shit together for the majority of the country, it seems. So yeah, it is actually, I think there's so many, and there's like, I'm closer to my family, right? Like I see them like way more often now. Like we go out for breakfast, we go out for dinners, we cook for each other. Like they come over, like I have like a puzzle evening with my mom, and it's like it's that sort of stuff, right? Justine, that is a good question. Has my productivity changed working from home? I work better being around people. I think that's not an issue that I have anything of an issue with, honestly. Because I think the benefit that I've had is that I've been running Beyond Extend for like the past 6 years. So being at work or doing work and being focused on it is always something that like I had to do from a day-to-day business, right? So I don't really have an issue with that. I think I've kind of turned a corner where, I mean, the stuff that I just talked about in being in the office, being surrounded by other people, and bumping into like random conversations, that is distraction, right? Like, it is good. I enjoy it, and I would love to have it if I could have it. But at the end of the day, that is still getting distracted, right? Even if it's like a funny, quippy, like in the moment kind of thing that takes like a couple of seconds, there's something called context switching, where like even if you get distracted by something where you're in the flow, it takes you like half an hour to get back into the flow again, right? Um, so yeah, um, I still feel like I'm as productive, or potentially even more, as I was before. Yeah, I think I do think that if I was surrounded by people, let me think about this. Like, I think my productivity would massively increase on top of what it's already now if in my case I was working with a group of people on my own thing, like actually physically. That is a thing where I haven't had that experience yet. And I think if we do have that at a certain point, that's when I feel like that's the next chapter, you know? Like let's say we hire people for Beyond Extend to do like a bunch of work for us, and we actually get to sit together and go to like an office that way. That would honestly be like the next level of productivity for me, because then I'm working on something that I genuinely truly like. I have full control over it, and I get to bring other people along with it that are there physically. I think that would be like the next step for me. Otherwise, I'm fine, when it comes to productivity. But yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah. Be curious to hear what everyone else's opinion on this is, because if you ever had the experience of working within a team or working by yourself, like, were you productive? Were you more productive in either situation? I'm curious to hear about that, because yeah. But yeah, I do like it. Like the whole the remote working situation, it is pretty nice. Like, I think, the cons kind of, the pros definitely outweigh the cons. So definitely not mad about it at all. All right, let's have a look. Two more people to go for feedback as well. So Jake. Oh, Jake is in the chat as well. Hello, Jake. So I'm focusing on establishing the mood in the sky. Any feedback to improve the first pass of that would be great. Attached references to what I'm aiming for. I'm trying to get darker patches here without taking over much of the sky. Darker patches here? What do you mean? Yeah, I guess you just want to have like more cloud shadows, right? Those look like pretty good. What I would say is, currently, I know this is not like really sky related, but I would definitely like try to block in like more of the background, so that this becomes like a really thick forest again, right? Like at the back of it. Then I like how this is happening right now, because we want to focus people here, right? So I think that's good. That's why I'm also proposing to close this off as well, because right now, this specific area is still like drawing a bit too much attention for my liking. If we're looking at some of your references, right? There's a lot of volumetrics going on. That's something that I would definitely try to experiment with as well. If that is going to be important to your scene, right? Because even having like more volumetric fog like around certain areas, like really really building it up and like making it really atmospheric, could be really good to already experiment with. It's a little too open. Yeah, I think so. I think it's more. I don't think it's too open from like a navigation perspective, right? Like it looks like you can go there. It's just the thing that bothers me is just the contrast, right? Because we have a lot of dark spaces going in here, but then the background, the far background, is light. So that means that the contrast between the two is trying to pull my attention there, and that is distracting. That is distracting me away from like what you're trying to do here, right? So, to give you an example, what am I trying to do here? Let's see, burn, burn. Highlights, tones. What am I doing here? Am I even doing anything? Oh. I am not doing anything. Why is that happening? What the hell? I've got no clue. Doesn't need white, you know? Well, I got no clue about that. That's not working. Anyway, trying to go for a kind of Silent Hill fog vibe. Yeah, I think if you're going for that, then get like a lot of fog in already, right? Like try to get the atmosphere already established. That's going to be super helpful. So lots of fog. So you want to block off this area, add fog. And let's see. Because yeah, I mean that's what the references all come down to, right? Slight bluish tint. I prefer something like this, right? Where you have like a little bit of blue compared to something that's more grayish. But that's more up to personal opinion. Let's see. How does the competition feel where are some of the first places your eyes look? Oh, I guess I jumped the gun on that one. Trying to keep it started from the first body on the ground, leading to the door to the house. I mean, the first floor on the ground is definitely going to be there because it is like a main foreground element, right? And it's also a person, so we're definitely going to see it more. What you could do is get some. Let's see. How are we going to do this? Get some specific, like, shadows here. And that could be like branch shadows or like leaf shadows. You can fake that with a light function, right? But that means that you can be like very specific. Let's say that these are like a bunch of like leaves, right? Just like from the top here, like invisible out of frame, right? And then you can kind of be like, hey, look, there's going to be like light coming in here, shining on the body, right? That is like partially submerged in mud. And then we can kind of like dedicate like a bit of time, like trying to build a connection between the two, right? That you're already trying to do with the light anyway. And then what you could potentially do, and this is more like a, I don't know, like a a sick element, but maybe reason why they are here is because they still have like the machete like in their back or something, right? Maybe that's a little bit on top. But then I'm thinking that you could use the metallicness of the machete or something like that to kind of get like a glint, right? And then we have that as like the first component leading you towards the back, right? Something like that could be interesting. And then the connection comes from footprints, right? Like very muddy footprints. Or like even, yeah, muddy footprints here. Interesting. It just depends on how on the nose you want to go. You want to have the first main body hanging on the barbed wire fence. Oh, you're talking about this one? Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, right? Like you could do that one, you could do this one. I think it just depends on what kind of story you want to have, right? Like the one on the floor kind of looks like they were trying to escape, and as they were escaping, they got struck down, right? So that is a more on the nose way of storytelling, where like this person that got stuck in the barbed wire here, that is more like it's less of a direct case, right? It's more like, oh, they might have been there for a while already or something like that. You could even use both, right? Where like the one hanging on the barbed wire is like decayed versus the one that's in the mud that is probably potentially more recent. I don't know. It would be something like that is like interesting to experiment with, right? Like just in terms of like shapes and colors and well fundamentals. Yeah. I would say like experiment with it. Give a couple of variations and then pick the one that you like the most, right? Gonna be cool. Yeah, cool inspirations as well. I like it. Cool. Thank you, Jake. Thank you for presenting your work. And good luck next week. I'm looking forward to the next updates. Yuancho, let's have a look. You are the last one for today. Let's have a look. See. Your questions for this week. For the furniture wooden kits, I sculpted them and refined the RGB masks. Any feedback for them? So we got these wood furniture kit, right? Let's have a look in the scene. Yeah, they look quite nice. The only thing that I really have to say is I would expect them to be like more old, right? Like more exiting the stream was a good stream. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Slate. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here, buddy. Appreciate it. We'll see you next week. So I think the first thing that I can think of is like more grayish tint, right? Like it's almost covered with like more dust. That's the first thing that I can think of. That comes to mind. But they do look nice and seen though. I like the way that the edges are broken up. I think that's looking really nice. Yeah. So I think that's pretty good. I think you did a good job. And then let's see. What do you think about the edge damage on the wall corners and the edge breakup on the ceiling? Okay, let's have a look here. I am honestly not sure if this is just me, but is that like blurry? I'm not too sure actually. I don't know what's happening here. Like compared to the rest of your materials, this one doesn't feel as crisp as it needs to be. Potentially it might also be that like the interior should be like gray or like plaster or something like that, right? It's probably going to be concrete because this is going to be a support pillar, right? That's maybe where like the paint looks like it's just taken over the whole thing, which is not supposed to be like that. Let's have a look here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's good. I do like that. It's potentially a little bit thick if we're going to be scrutinizing it. And it could use cracks as well. I think you got the big chunks right, but it would be nice to have like a couple of cracks to really sell the effect, right? Yeah, those are like small details. Maybe you can do like a really quick decal job or something like that. It doesn't need much, you know? But that could be cool. There's like a generic crack that you can use. But yeah, great job though. Great job on like all those details. We're getting there. And I like your sculpt as well. Looking quite nice. It is the only question that I have here. This is interesting because I've encountered this like a couple of times now where this is more just like general comment, I guess. It's not necessarily feedback and it's not something that you have to adjust, right? But yeah, I would say like if you go through the trouble of sculpting a high poly, right? And to me, it makes sense that if you want to go for like the maximum quality, that you just like bake that down onto your low poly and then do a texture pass that way, right? Basically go with unique approach. Because right now we're kind of using an approach that is oftentimes more reserved for assets where we can't hit textile density and we have to recuperate textile density from another way, right? So an example could be a rock or like a big cliff or something like that, where you still want to have like some edge damage, right? Through a normal map. But because that is so big, because the asset is so big, you can't really just have a unique texture on it, right? So I would say that like I'm just slightly confused why you sculpt the high poly where you can then just like use that data, bake it down onto a low poly, and then make like a really crisp and unique texture rather than having to fiddle around with like RGB masking and all that kind of stuff, right? Because RGB masking is an interesting technique, but it is useful in the cases where it kind of makes sense, right? Which is potentially not this one. Again, there's nothing technically wrong with it, right? It is more like, it's more a question of like, okay, if you then go through the trouble of sculpting it to create like, to have like the most interesting damage on your assets, then why don't you go all the way and then do the texturing uniquely as well, right? It's just something like, again, there's nothing really wrong with it with executing it this way, right? It just feels like the blending of two workflows that are, yeah, they're not really used in the way that they should be used, in my opinion. But yeah, Justine is saying great furniture pieces. It would be nice to see some of that debris from the ceiling on them. Yeah, I think that's a good point actually, because we definitely have like ceiling debris here. So yeah, having like some dust and some rubble and some bits like on them as well, depending where they've fallen, right? I think that's a great point. And some like small debris here could be cool as well. The foreground is always like a great opportunity to just add like a couple of bits of details. That's cool. Yeah, thank you for that comment, Justine. Appreciate it. Right, and that will be it for your feedback, Juancho. Thank you so much for posting your work again. It was nice to see you update your work. And again, great job on pushing it, right? The small details really make a lot of a difference. So yeah, great job. Great job on pushing it forward as well. Cool. Still 14 people here. That's amazing to see. Thank you for sticking all the way through. As a reminder, I'm going to show it once more. Where is it actually? Where did I leave it? Let me go to the website again. As a reminder for people, if you haven't heard, if you weren't here in the beginning of the stream, I'm also now doing portfolio reviews, which is awesome. And I would love to have your portfolio to review. You can now find them, if we just switch the camera really quick. Again, you can just go to your dashboard and then you can look under your perks and you can see that there's now portfolio reviews, which you can go in and submit your portfolio. It also has a bunch of like additional commentary and suggestions on how we look at your portfolio too, and how to improve it if you wanted to. So again, the goal with this is that we have the community coming for portfolio reviews, and then what we do is we are currently building up like a leaderboard or like a catalog of people that you can then look forward to and learn from them, as I give them a relatively arbitrary score based on these 4 categories, right? In the hope that we get to a point where we have some people that are really good in maybe 1 or more categories, that we can then use them as an example of why they are good in those categories, so that other people from the community can learn from it. I think it could be like a really interesting system, and I'm looking forward to actually using it as well. So we are actually going to use this page as we're doing the portfolio reviews to also have a look at how we grade it, and we're going to do it all live on this page, so you can kind of follow along as we do that. Again, I'll share. I don't really have to share like the link. I guess I can, but you can just go to your account section on the website if you are a member, get logged in, get portfolio reviews. It's all included in your membership as well. So yeah, and I'm thinking that next week Friday we will do our first portfolio review. So yeah, hoping to see you there. I don't know about a time yet, but I will make an announcement of that in our community. So yeah. Josh is saying amazing news. Yeah! And Ferris saying I don't have a portfolio yet. That's nothing to be worried about. I mean, that's also why we're doing this, right? And that's why we're doing like the portfolio views as a live stream and all that kind of stuff, so that you can also learn from other people that are going through like the same thing. So that we can turn it into like, again, a community thing, right? Where we help each other get like better at what we do. So yeah. Right. That's about it for me tonight. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all so much for your support throughout the entire year of 2025. It's amazing. And I'm honestly looking forward to doing more of this stuff in 2026. So I'll see you next week. And I'll see you 2 days after that as well for our first portfolio reviews. And I will see you then. Have a nice week. Bye-bye.